Excuse me. Gosh. All right, are we good? Okay, no feedback. All right, good evening and welcome to the regular business meeting of the Scarborough School Board of Education. The date is Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. May I have the attendance, please?
Sure. Mrs. Giftis? Here. Ms. Castellanos?
Here.
Mr. Kelleher?
Here.
Ms. Leong?
Here.
Mrs. Lindstrom?
Here.
Mr. Peony Huff? Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Ms. Giftis?
Here.
And Ms. Bertulia?
Here. Very good, thank you. Agenda item 3.0 is the Pledge of Allegiance. And everybody please join me.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Agenda item 4.0 is adjustments to the agenda. Are there any adjustments this evening?
No adjustments this evening.
Thank you. All right, agenda item 5.0 is public comment on agenda items. So we've got, just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page. We have a lot of people here. We have people online and I have things to read. So what I think we'll do, just to make it the easiest possible, we can have people in person that want to make public comment line up, and I'll take a couple and then I'll read some and then I'll take some offline and then I'll come back to in person. Make sense? All right, so is anybody, should I start reading? I don't see anybody lined up, so I can start with my public. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, really quickly. I'm so sorry, really quickly before you start. Please, when you're making public comment, address them to me as the chair. Please introduce yourself, identify yourself with your name, and then if you can, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Okay, is this on? Do I have to like speak into it or it's automatically going? Okay. Dear Chair, hi, my name is Amber Hoja and I live at 11 Minuteman Drive. I'm here tonight to ask that you pass a vote to make masks optional in Scarborough Public Schools. Just today, the CDC announced the community transmission level for COVID in Cumberland County has dropped to the medium level. Here are some towns that have recently decided to go mask optional: Cheverus, Augusta, Marshwood, Massabesic, Windham, Lewiston, Westbrook, Yarmouth, North Yarmouth, Cumberland, Brunswick, Gorham, Saco, and South Portland. I'm probably missing a bunch, but just gave you a handful. Enough is enough. Let's all agree that the majority of us are depleted and we simply want the option to mask or not mask our own kids. They're our kids. For 2 years, parents have been asking for an exit plan, for a means to get ourselves out of this hole of fear and hesitancy we seem to be so stuck in. How can we justify masking in school but not outside of it? Does COVID only exist within the school walls? When you experience darkness, a true leader can see the light. A leader also plans for a better day, no matter how scary things get. So please set an example and listen to your community. I'm asking every one of you pass this vote to make the masks optional here in Scarborough Public Schools. I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amber. I'm going to read a few and then I have a couple of people that I'll promote online. The first one is from Lucia Benscombe, and she says, "Dear Chair," she's a Pleasant Hill second grader. "Dear Chair, please say yes to masks optional. Thank you." Mhm. And here is one from Hannah Benscombe, who is a Wentworth School fourth grader. And she says, "To Chair, we really want no masks, please, or at least masks optional. We have mask on too much for at least over 2 years. Most of us hate masks. We want no more masks, please." Then I have one, Jim McGregor. "Number one, did you folks make an arrangement with COVID to be gone on the 15th instead of the 9th? Why are our kids being forced to wear these face diapers a week past all other schools and actually months behind other states? My kids are suffering from anxiety and now heart issues. Can we please take the poison bacteria filled masks that never worked off of our kids? Number two, the parents that are joining together all over the country are joining together here in Maine as well. You will not shut us out. We pay for these schools. We pay your salaries. We want accountability and access to all teaching documents and curriculum. We want access to school board meetings, not a Zoom call or request to speak in an email. We will fight until we have complete control back over our kids' education. The school boards and unions are not in charge. We are. Next up, cameras and audio in the classrooms, allowing no teachers to go off subject. We pay you to teach our children the courses you specialize in, nothing else. No political or racial opinions allowed. I speak for many who are afraid to speak up. This must end. We, the people, have had quite enough. We will not be blocked out and labeled domestic terrorists by any new bills that may pass either. We have sat back unknowingly thinking you folks had our best interests at heart and our children's interest. We realize all of you are just trying to keep your jobs doing what they tell you to do. But it now has become very clear you do not in the slightest have our best interests at heart. Now we, the taxpaying parents, are going to make sure things change here." A very fed up parent. Okay, and then I have one from Jania Hoxa, and she says, "Hi, my name is Nini, and I think that I shouldn't have to wear a mask. I go to Pleasant Hill School and I am 7 years old. I know that I now get little blackheads on top of my nose from wearing a mask, so I want no more masks. Thank you." And then I have one also from Ari Hoxa. He says, "Dear Chair, my name is Ari and I am 9 years old and I go to Wentworth. I am in fourth grade. I hate wearing masks because they distract me. I like to peel at them during math and reading. They always rub on my face. Our teacher can't hear us very good because of the masks. Make the masks optional. Thank you, Ari." Okay, I'll do one more and then I'll move over to online. "Dear school board, please vote yes to make masks optional because it's hard to hear my friends. It's uncomfortable. From Kiana to the school." And then one more. "Dear school board, please vote yes to make masks optional because it is hard to hear my friends and they are uncomfortable. And I want to see my teachers' faces and friends. From Bryson to the school." The end. Okay, Crystal, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. Crystal Ash Cuthbert, you'll be first from on the Zoom call. And you are ready. You're
All right. Thank you, Shannon, and members of the board. My name is Crystal Ash Cuthbert. I'm a fifth grade teacher. And just hearing some of the comments, one of my previous students has spoken, and she was once mine, and so they're all ours. Wanted to speak to an agenda item that you have this evening regarding the school calendar. And I wanted to make sure that the board, as well as the public, knew that the Scarborough Education Association supports the additional or fourth day for professional development, as it is absolutely needed. There's significant updates and curriculum revision work that's scheduled for this summer and into next year. There is a district-wide science curriculum update and revision, a district-wide social studies revision, as well as a brand new curriculum of social and emotional learning that's going to be developed. We have a coordination committee scheduled for both district-wide visual and performing arts, as well as health and PE. And K-5 buildings also have a word study. So those are significant subjects that require a great deal of preparation, professional development. And that additional day would provide educators with the time to become proficient on those new curriculum standards so that we can do our very best job teaching our students. We can more adequately prepare for our students' needs prior to the first day of them coming into our classrooms. So the SCA strongly encourages the board to adopt the calendar as proposed this evening. It's what's best for both staff and students. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. I'm going to take one more on Zoom and then I'm going to come over here. Okay. Joanna Wallace, you're next.
All right, thank you. Dear Chair, you have some really big decisions to make tonight. Thank you for your time and energy. I know this isn't easy, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak and for your time and for listening. I'm in favor of universal masking, not forever, but for a bit longer, until we can confirm that community and school transmission levels are low. As you heard at the last meeting, my family has members at risk for severe COVID, and there are others in our school community in the same situation. Imagine the impacts my children will experience if they bring home COVID from school. And if they were to contract COVID, it would be from school, because that's the only indoor venue that they currently go to outside of our home. Imagine if COVID was contracted at school and hospitalized or killed a family member. Avoiding indoor spaces is a reality that my family and other members of our wonderful Scarborough community have lived with for the last 2 years. The fact that universal masking has been removed in most public spaces is exactly why it is important for universal masking in schools to remain. My family can avoid public spaces like the grocery store, restaurants, concerts. My children cannot avoid school, and they shouldn't have to avoid school. I understand that members of the community want a choice on whether or not to mask. I really do. I'm asking that as you make your decision today, you remember to think about the families that are still at risk for severe COVID. What choice is my family and others like us at risk for severe COVID being offered? Masks that fit children work best when everyone is masked. Having my child be the only one masked does not protect my child from COVID. I noticed in the proposed plan that KN95s are being offered to teachers. Might smaller KN95s be offered to students as well? The CDC has their green, yellow, and red classification system that they released last week to help guide decisions on whether universal masking can be removed and reinstated. Scarborough schools have followed CDC guidance for a long time, and I would support continuing to do so. While I don't think the CDC system is perfect, I ask that it be considered for use along with the assessment of local cases in the school, similar to what's proposed in the draft COVID plan. We've heard about the backlog of COVID tests in Maine. Maybe that's driving our numbers up, but what if it isn't? If we remove universal masking in our schools too soon, it could have real impacts on the number of COVID cases in our schools and in our community. The concerns I have with the proposed updated COVID spring response plan are as follows. It does not currently incorporate the CDC classification guidance. I like the concept of combining the school transmission and the vaccination rate, but there should be a community level transmission component as well. 2, do we know the current vaccination rate for students and staff in each school? At a previous meeting, it was shared that the vaccination numbers shared with the state were a result of staff completing an online survey. While there was good response to the survey, not everyone responded. Can we be sure the percentage of staff and students we think are vaccinated truly are? 3, students or staff members who do contract COVID must wear a mask on days 6 to 10, following the CDC guidance. How will this be enforced? Will teachers and bus drivers receive a list of students who tested positive for COVID so that they can confirm those students are masked? 4, I'm curious as to where the 2% number came from, allowing masks to be removed. It's different than the number that's suggested by the CDC. The goal of the updated spring 2022 COVID response plan is to safely maintain in-person learning for all students. I'm asking that all students, including those at high risk for severe COVID, be remembered in the version of the plan that is approved. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Joanna. All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna Furr. I'm at 16 Old Colony Lane. Thank you, Chair, for hearing public comment. I'm a pediatric gastroenterologist and mom to 3 children in the Scarborough school system. I'm here tonight to urge the board to vote on a masking plan that is in the best interest of all of our kids, my own healthy children, and the children that I care for in my practice who are not healthy and are at risk of complications from COVID-19. My message is very simple. I would urge the board to continue to follow the advice of the federal CDC. Federal CDC guidelines as of today for Cumberland County based on our transmission rate are in the red zone. And those recommendations are as follows. Wear a mask in public, indoors in public, stay up to date on COVID vaccines, get tested if you have symptoms, and know that additional precautions may be needed for people at risk of severe illness. As a pediatric gastroenterologist in this town, I care for local patients with the following illnesses, all of whom are included on the CDC list of at-risk individuals. Kids with chronic liver disease, cystic fibrosis, type 1 diabetes, mental health disorders, including depression, obesity, the use of steroids, and other immunosuppressive medications. I have recently cared for local children with COVID complications in the ICU, on the inpatient unit, and in my outpatient clinic, months after they had their own COVID infections and continued to struggle with complications. Federal CDC guidance for these kids is to wear a well-fitting mask indoors in public, regardless of vaccination status, including in K through 12 schools. My job as a pediatrician and your job as the Board of Education is to advocate for the well-being of all children. I applaud the decision to date to require universal masking so far throughout this school year. It has been a true joy to see my kids physically back in school, participating in sports and theater and clubs with no restrictions other than wearing a simple mask. This school year has been a huge success for their well-being and mental health when compared to last year, and that is due in no small part to the layer of protection offered by universal masking. We're in the red zone, so per federal CDC guidelines, mandatory masking should be continued. If we enter the yellow zone, children at risk should continue to mask. It serves the best interest of those children if their peers mask to protect them. Putting the needs of others above the needs of ourselves is a fantastic lesson to teach our kids. If the board chooses to vote to lift mandatory masking, then well-fitted surgical masks should be provided by the district for all at-risk children, staff, and anyone who chooses to continue to wear one. There's no need to create our own response plan. One has been already created by the CDC. That's their job. It's my opinion that this school year has been a great success. Sports are in session. The kids got to celebrate homecoming. Musicals are being performed. Prom and graduation are right around the corner. Giving up on masking now seems like stopping at 26 miles when you have 0.2 to go. I would urge us all to have some resilience, put up with the masks for a few more months, and let our kids finish the year healthy and happy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Scopas. I live in Old Colony Lane in Scarborough. Thank you, Chair, for hearing my remarks today. And I am a mother of 2 kids in the school system, and I'm also a practicing family medicine physician in our community right now. And I want to start with saying, but I'm pretty sure that we all have the same main goals here, right? That's the health, safety, and well-being of our students and our school community. And also to safely maintain our in-person learning for students, because I think we all agree that's important for their learning. And while we're, excited and cautiously optimistic about the improving COVID situation, if there's one thing we know about COVID is that it's unpredictable. And so while we always hope for the best, we should still prepare for the possibility that this, might not be the end. I think it's very important, and to that end that I urge the school board to be mindful in their decision about when we're going to lift a masking mandate, because we all hope and want, and that's our plan at some point, to lift the mask requirement, that we're mindful about taking into account all the factors at play. And Anna actually nicely delineated a lot of those. So I'm not going to kind of repeat what she said, but I also would advocate for the use of the federal CDC guidance, which has clear metrics for when it's safe to consider relaxing mitigation measures like masking, and importantly also has measures when they may need to come back. Now, of course, we all hope we never have to go there, and I think would be a much easier situation to make sure that we are in a good place and a safe place before we relax those strategies. Because one of the things I think that's important that some of the others have mentioned is that this will be a change, and it's a good change for most, but the change is not the same for everybody. Those who are at high risk or live with somebody at high risk, or just choose to protect those at high risk, even if they aren't themselves, the change is going to be different and more difficult. Of course, they'll have the option to mask themselves, but it's way easier to do it when it's a universal and all their peers are doing it. And I think when the mask requirements are lifted, it's important that we're continuing the other measures to mitigate safety for our students, including the pool testing, which I think is planned to do. So I applaud that. And I think it's also very important that we're tracking not just our school measures of how many cases, but also in the community. Again, that's what the CDC is recommending, because I would much rather us not be reacting to increases in our school, but proactively trying to prevent those increases in our schools by looking at all the community data like the CDC said. And finally, I want to make sure that whenever the plan is in place to lift the mask requirements, that there's also a plan in place to model empathy. And there will still be some masking. So we want to model the empathy that that's not a hard transition for them. Most of the people that still will be masking might be in the high risk category and are already having a hard time as it is. So we need to make sure that transition is as smooth as it is. And I think that's important to be in the plan as well. So in summary, I recommend that we use the CDC guidance to support our plan for when it's a safe time to stop universal masking, and that we have empathy, and just remember throughout this all that we really are on the same team. So we need to make this decision together for the best of everyone. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. I'm going to read just a couple. That's okay. This one doesn't have a name. It just says yes on optional masking at Scarborough schools. Thank you. Okay. Hello, Mrs. Lindstrom and board members. I am sure you've gotten many emails about the mask mandates, but I would like to tell you my perspective on the matter. I am a freshman at the high school and have seen firsthand what masks, quarantining, and social distancing does to kids. Not being able to see your friends' faces or their emotions has a huge social impact. Not being able to see if they are happy, sad, worried, or stressed has a huge impact. When you do not know what they are feeling, how are you supposed to be a friend? Kids and humans show emotions physically with their face and not their words, not with words. This is just how we work. When you pick up your kids from school or when they arrive home, when you ask them how was school, the majority of kids respond with good, but that is usually not the whole story. You can tell by their face if they are smiling or not, angry or something else. Not being able to see those emotions changes a lot for the worse and makes us all more introverted. Over the past few years of the pandemic, several of my friends have become much more introverted because they can simply hide in the faceless crowd of kids and just blend in. And because of the isolation, they talk very quietly or not at all, which makes me extremely sad. Social interaction and understanding how people feel is a very important part of a child's development. Masks hinder that ability. Without that ability, how are we supposed to effectively communicate? I myself have a hard time communicating due to my stutter, not to mention the special needs kids that have been heavily affected by this. Every one of my friends and I have talked, every one of my friends I've talked to wants this mask mandate lifted for the reasons I listed above and many, many more. The removal of masks should not be tied to vaccination status, prior COVID infection, or anything of the sort. You would only be dividing even further if you only allowed vaccinated students to not wear masks. The student population is already divided enough between friend groups, sports, and clubs. What if a student is not eligible for the vaccine or the parent decided against having their child receive the vaccine? Would that student be required to wear a mask for the rest of their time in the Scarborough school system? How would that be fair to the student? It would only lead to bullying and the further dividing of the student body. If we are already maskless at lunch for 30 minutes, sitting inches away from our friends and fellow classmates, what difference would it make if we were maskless all day? The vast majority of students do not wear masks when they see their friends outside of school, so what difference does it make if it's in school or not? Florida and many other southern states have not had school mask mandates for months, and I have not heard of any large outbreaks. Even states such as New York have removed mask mandates. If schools with a student body 3, 4, and 5 times ours can lift mask mandates, I see zero reason why we cannot. If you and the administrators truly care about the students, you should remove all mask mandates regardless of vaccination status. I hope you take this into consideration tonight. This is from Jeff and Marisol Meyer. We understand that there is much momentum around reducing mask guidelines and mandates in schools. However, we have experienced similar lulls in COVID case counts over the last 2 years and have ultimately found ourselves back at square one when a new variant emerges. What is the rush to push for removing the mask mandate now? We all want to get back to normal, but Cumberland County remains at a high risk of transmission as of March 3rd on the CDC website. We have built sandcastles at low tide for too often to continue making the same mistake. Our family would strongly support a more conservative approach and suggest maintaining the mask mandate for now or waiting to show consistent low community transmission levels for multiple weeks in a row prior to removing the mandates. Thank you. I'm going to read one more and then I'm going to come over. Okay. Good evening. My name is Chris, and apparently all of the board members already know my last name, so there's no need for me to state it, especially since it is not a written policy requirement. I will once again not use any offensive or threatening language, so please do not act like my comments are somehow inappropriate. Negative feedback, especially when warranted based on poor performance, isn't typically the most kind thing to hear. Ironically, I received more positive feedback than usual from people after the last meeting. What would the reaction be from the board members if the words I used in my comments appeared in the Portland Press Herald, the Scarborough Leader, or another form of press? Would you try to strike these from the records too, just because they are too critical? I have a few questions for the board to consider tonight prior to this long overdue vote on making masks optional. What is so different about tonight than previous months when the vote should have occurred? Did the viral surge from winter break that the board warned us about 2 weeks ago actually occur? Why does the updated COVID response plan mention teachers, staff supporting and encouraging students to continue wearing masks? Will the kids who choose not to wear a mask receive the same support and encouragement? Why is case count a metric for determining low versus high scenarios? Didn't the CDC and other public health experts say that hospitalizations are a much more relevant statistic? What is the significance of the 80% vaccination rate threshold at school? Where did that number come from, and why isn't there accounting for children who's recovered from COVID and have better protection in the form of natural immunity? Do the right thing and vote to make masks optional. After all, if masks work, then shouldn't the wearer be protected and not need to worry about what others are, then shouldn't the wearer be protected and not need to worry about what others not wearing masks? Schools who lead the way in removing masks agree that smiles are more contagious than the virus. Thank you for your time, Chris. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Jennifer Jubilus. I live on Haystack Circle, and I'm a parent of a Wentworth student, and I'm also a pediatric infectious disease physician. And of course, I'm going to speak on tonight's vote on school masking. Most pediatricians in Maine, and I have spoken to many over the past 48 hours, are incredibly nervous about ending universal masking in schools. My colleagues and I have seen children in the ICU due to COVID. We have seen healthy children with heart inflammation after COVID. We have seen children with inflammation in the fluid around their brain secondary to COVID. We've seen whole families decimated by COVID. And yes, we have seen children die of COVID. So yes, we are very nervous. The lack of a universal mask recommendation as of yesterday does not mean a recommendation to unmask. The federal CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics continue to recommend masking for over 3/4 of us who are at higher risk of disease or who live with someone who is. People who are overweight, people who have lung diseases such as asthma, people who have high blood pressure or other cardiac disease, people with diabetes, people with neurodevelopmental disorders such as autism, people with disabilities who are pregnant or who are immune suppressed. Many of our kids, as Dr. Furr adequately pointed out, fall into these high-risk categories, and many more live with family members who do. A vote to end universal school masking needs to be understood in the context of these children. Public education is a right, it's not a privilege. It needs to be understood in the context of these children and the pressures they may face to unmask before it is safe to do so. If we end universal masking, at the very least, families at high risk of disease should be provided with protective masks like KN95s or KF94s free of charge, as they are prohibitively expensive. We need a plan to support these children in the face of peer pressure, and we need to continue masking children during isolation or quarantine for COVID infection or exposure. We need to look at ventilation. We need to look at sick policy. We need to look at class size. We need to look at spacing. We need plans for outbreaks to prevent school disruption. This is simply not unmask and all is well. We need metrics. The federal CDC has provided metrics for dialing up or down on mitigation factors based on county disease rates and hospital capacity. Many infectious disease doctors define endemicity as the state in which infection rates become predictable, and COVID is not there yet. There is an Omicron subvariant, BA2, which may be more infectious, more serious, and may prolong our recent surge. There are animal reservoirs where the virus can mutate before reinfecting humans. The world remains at risk as there will be more variants. While we hope this wave is the last, hope is not an operational strategy. In your vote tonight, I am asking you to please vote to use federal CDC guidance for future planning. COVID is not over. From January 1st, 2022 through the end of February, over 150 children have died due to COVID, approximately a Sandy Hook every 10 days. Things are improving, but they have not resolved. 40% of the kids in Cumberland County remain unvaccinated. As a pediatric infectious disease physician, I cannot support ending universal masking. If we choose to do so, we need to plan to support vulnerable students, staff, and family. And we need to implement other additional precautions to keep schools open safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Dr. Abby Markham. I'm a board certified pediatrician and live off Winnick's Neck Road in Scarborough. Thank you. As a former middle school teacher, a parent of 2 children in the Scarborough schools, and a community pediatrician, I'm here tonight to advocate for the health and well-being of our children as we navigate this pandemic and figure out how to move through the steps of unmasking in our schools. I commend our school board for following federal CDC guidance up until this point. The guidance is based upon science and expert opinion and is not always in line with popular opinion. You have made difficult decisions and worked hard to do what is right, and I'm grateful. Your job is certainly not easy. Governor Mills announced that universal masking in schools will no longer be required as of next week, and it will be up to the individual schools to keep kids healthy and in-person learning. The federal CDC has released guidance on how to safely do this according to disease burden within our community. There is a board proposal circulating in the community as well as attached to the agenda tonight regarding unmasking in the Scarborough schools. It should be very clear that this proposal is not in line with the current federal CDC guidance, which uses different metrics to determine unmasking. And this is the reason I do not support this proposal. It is unclear to me how the proposed metrics for Scarborough were determined, and I hope to hear more about that this evening. Although CDC metrics are not without their flaws, they are rooted in expert opinion and fact. We all want to see our children attend school safely without the need to wear a mask, but my concern is how do we get to that place? In deviating from federal CDC guidance, we take on additional risks for our students, teachers, and staff, and will ultimately be responsible if we place unnecessary burdens on our families and to the health system that serves us. As a pediatrician, I see the effects of the pandemic firsthand. Maybe most sad for me is how the year of isolation and remote schooling has affected the mental well-being of our children. I see many children that come into the office every day with anxiety and depression, which in my mind comes from the isolation and quarantine and their increased exposure to social media as they've tried to stay connected to their friends. I do not view our current mental health crisis as a direct result of masking and have not seen any peer-reviewed evidence to support that. Pandemic fatigue is a term that I identify with, and I'm sure many of us in this room do as well. That said, recent trends are reassuring, and I am hopeful. I encourage us to maintain vigilance to see this through. Like all of you, I want to keep our schools open. I do think that in the future, we can safely and thoughtfully send our students to school without masks, but how we get to this point is your decision. I advocate that we celebrate our past accomplishments in this pandemic and look forward to normalcy, while also following the recommendation of the federal CDC. I hope the board will reevaluate the metrics in the current unmasking proposal and consider adopting those CDC metrics, allowing us to align with other school districts as well as maintaining consistency within the Scarborough schools. Thank you for your time and your service to our community.
Thank you. I'm going to flip really quickly to a couple online and then I'll come back. Matt Pine, I'm going to promote you and allow you to speak. You are ready.
Hi, good evening. So I'm here to ask this board to approve the main CDC recommendation to make masking optional for kids no later than March 8th, I believe. We've seen the federal guidance come out a few weeks ago, federal CDC recommending no masks for children in low risk zones. The main CDC knows that within a matter of days we'll be in a low risk zone. You can go out and check the data and check how the case rates, and it's they're using the current cases to project, and they know that we're going to be in a low risk zone within a matter of days. I think somebody mentioned we're maybe in medium. I think we were in a higher risk a day ago, but it's a trailing statistic. So unless this board and the administration can articulate to us a recommendation that is different from the federal and the main CDC that would somehow recommend extended mask use, you need to go ahead and move forward with what the experts are saying. I appreciate that this is a new thing and different for us and for a lot of people, but it's something to not be afraid of. We were okay before masks. And if you look at the data, it's safe. And that's why the experts that you rely on, the main CDC and the federal CDC, are saying that it's safe. So please make that decision, advocate for our children, and approve removing masks no later than the main CDC guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Lee, you're going to be next. You're all set.
Great, thank you. I'll be extremely brief. I just wanted to make sure that any vote is using up-to-date information. Just prior to 7 p.m. tonight, the US CDC moved every Maine county into the medium category. There is no Maine county in any high category. So that's my one comment for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. I'm going to do one more on Zoom and then I'll come back in person, and we are at Chris Lyford. You're ready. Your microphone is muted, Chris. Chris, your microphone is still muted. Sorry if I'm telling you something you already know. Well, why don't I do this, Chris? Well, I'm going to move to someone in the room, and then once you're able to unmute, then we'll switch back over to you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Chip Howe. I'm a 19-year Scarborough resident and business owner and an SMCC instructor. I have 3 daughters of all going through the Scarborough school system. My youngest is currently in the middle school as a 6th grader. She's sitting in the back. I had to bring her. The one thing I wanted to jump to is what the gentleman just said was one of my neighbors in the back here informed me that Cumberland County is now medium. It's not high. And that is as of this evening. So that was stated earlier incorrectly. So I just wanted to bring that up. I'm coming to you from a standpoint of fear that we have instilled for the last 24 months, just about to the day, isn't it? 2 years. 2 years we've done this. And every day we turn on our little machines in our hands or the internet, and there's more fear. And then we find misinformation. I've watched kids lose friendships, total disconnect with friends that they were very close with, not only my own, but I coached softball. And we didn't have a season 2 years ago. We had a travel team, didn't wear masks, never had a problem. Last spring, we had softball. Girls showed up and had masks on. Try to coach a preteen, tween softball when you can't read their face, know what they're feeling. Can't. But then we're able to take the masks off, and I could see smiles. I could see happiness. I could see fun. I could see them cheering each other. I teach heating over at SMCC, and most of my students last year and this year are 18 to 22, although I have some that are actually in their 30s and 40s. And these kids don't know how to talk to each other. And I think it's directly related to the fact that they've been hiding behind these masks in fear. I mean, the psychological impact that we're imposing on these kids, and I understand we're all doing the best that we can, but we have more information now. Omicron goes through a cloth mask, maybe not a KN95 or 95. Went skiing last week up to Saddleback, stopped in at Rite Aid, now Walgreens, boxes of these. Take 3, they're free. Take 3. You know how much expensive these are? They're giving them away because they're not required. So if we're going to put this on every kid, maybe, but a cloth mask, read the studies. Omicron goes right through it. Doesn't do anything. Buddy, watch the Super Bowl? How many masks did you see? How about the State of the Union the other night? See any masks? How about any of the Hollywood award shows? No mask there. time to take them off. Large states have done it in the South, as mentioned earlier. You are going to have situations where people get sick, but you're going to have people getting sick because our immune systems are all shot right now. They haven't been challenged the last couple of years. Has anybody had a minor cold this winter? I have. Did it knock me for a loop? Yeah, it knocked me down for about a week. We've got to get our feet back underneath us. I'll leave the board with asking if they've actually looked at the Johns Hopkins meta study on the lockdowns. Show of hands, anybody seen it? If you have, I'm just curious. Anybody seen it? You should read it. It hasn't been publicized very much because the media doesn't want to talk about it. But in summary, you can do it really quickly. You can look it up. And lockdowns didn't help. Made things a lot worse. They imposed enormous economical and social cost by saving very few lives. But we're going to live with this for many, many, many years to come. My middle daughter's decided to become a social worker. I told her she's going to be busy the rest of her life. And I think that's very sad. But we are where we are. We got to get past this. And we've got to get these kids back in connection with each other. They are having lunch together again, finally, at the middle school. I mean, they get so excited about it. Take the masks off. I told my daughter about the mask coming off possibly next week. Well, some of my friends might not take it off. And I said, well, that's okay. That's called a choice. The last time I checked, we live in America. We have some freedoms here still. And I think those freedoms, I am a veteran. I fought for them. I think those veterans are important. I think those freedoms are important. So I'd encourage you to drop this mask mandate and get these kids back to more normal and move on. Thank you.
Chris, I wanted to check in with you on Zoom and see if you're ready to speak. Do you want to go ahead? Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Kenney. I live at 9 Lobos Road in Scarborough. I had reservations about whether or not I would speak tonight and what I would speak about. So I'd like to start out with a few points that were made earlier. Some of the things that I think we've talked about a little bit are fairness. And one of the gentlemen before me just pointed some of that out in a different way. Fairness being, do we treat adults like we treat kids? And I'm here to tell you, we don't in this town. And I will give you the example that I witnessed this week personally. I visited town hall earlier this week to register my vehicle. I walked in, registered my vehicle. I forgot to bring a mask. I was halfway to the door and realized I didn't have a mask. And I thought, well, maybe they have masks at the door. So I proceeded to the door to find masks and a sign that said masks were optional. I was somewhat delighted to think that I could go into the town office not wearing a mask. Registered my vehicle. I noticed nobody on the first floor that I witnessed had a mask on. I left. I walked out of the building and realized I probably should walk up to the superintendent's office. To my dismay, would anybody like to guess how many people had masks on? None. So the adults that run our district as highly paid individuals choose to treat themselves, sorry, I'm really upset about this, with more respect and dignity and rights than our children that they're masking in our schools. I would thank the board for many hours, I think, of really good discussion, debate, and trying to come to reason about some expectations of our school system. I'm sorry, Mr. Bruno, but our superintendent. This town has lived through some casualties of poor leadership, and I would hate to see us go down that road again. I would ask that Mr. Bruno and the board get together and come up with a responsible policy that unmasks our kids. And that's done immediately, as demonstrated is safe to do in a public setting by Mr. Bruno and his team. One of the challenges that I faced in my discussions with the board was that the superintendent's office was a part of town hall. Superintendent's office, all of its staff and all of its expenses, to my knowledge, are all paid for as part of the school department. They are in no way a part of the town hall. I just can't stand by and watch adults live with liberties and freedoms that they refuse to allow our kids. I think that's unethical, and I think it's hypocritical. As I left town hall, extremely frustrated and disappointed, I started making phone calls. Interestingly enough, on Scout Hill Road, I passed a bus driver. I don't know what bus he was driving, but I could pick him out of a lineup because he wasn't wearing a mask. I proceeded home, and at the intersection of Beach Ridge and Holmes, I passed 2 Public Works employees riding in a pickup truck unmasked. Again, more of our paid town employees. I realize they do have a different policy, but clearly it's been demonstrated in our own community that it is safe to be in non-distance, non-socially binding quarters in close proximity to others and have it be safe. I would bring up some of the same points the gentleman before me just mentioned, that clearly that's been demonstrated in our superintendent's office, in town hall, in settings like this, by our public employees. And I think it's time for us to allow our kids to enjoy the same freedoms that adults in this room being paid to represent this town are enjoying themselves. I'm very happy to see that Mr. Bruno's proposal apparently has been removed from the agenda, because when we spoke earlier this week, what I learned at the end of our conversation, which was a pleasant conversation, didn't end terribly well, when I learned that the metrics being applied weren't currently met, that he was proposing be voted on by tonight's meeting. So he was putting up a goalpost that we couldn't kick the community ball through for tonight's meeting as of that time. So I thought, again, he was not only demonstrating that these behaviors are safe, he was also proposing to the town a policy that wouldn't be met even if it was adopted tonight. But he was sure that it would be coming in the near future. So apparently he felt sometime down the road, our kids deserve the same freedom as he and his staff. The pediatrician a few minutes ago mentioned something that I thought was interesting, and I apologize. I think she mentioned that she was a pediatrician. So I was going over my notes. If I'm incorrect, I will stand corrected. But that the recommendation is not to end masking. I don't advocate that we end masking. I'm not going to tell anybody that they can't wear a mask to feel safe. But I think it is appropriate, and it is time for us to tell people to feel as though it is safe for them to be in our public spaces, particularly our schools, to engage with their friends, to interact with teachers, to be able to read lips in things like Spanish that my wife brought up to me tonight, in learning a different language in an environment that can be challenging enough in a school setting where they can't read lips. I think it's important for them socially. And I would also like to point out, as I discussed with many of the board members this week, our kids face plenty of social and health challenges every single day. They face challenges with drugs, alcohol, driving. They go outside of school and they practice the same things that we're restricting them from doing in school. They sit in cars in the school parking lot, in groups, unmasked. They go to social events in people's houses, unmasked. They kiss their boyfriends and girlfriends, unmasked, obviously, I think. So I think it's far time that we allow everybody the choice, particularly as parents, to make responsible decisions with our kids, to decide what is right and wrong for our own children, and not have people that feel as though right for them is wrong for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to read a couple, take one, and then I'll come back over. All right, this is from Lisa and Joe Hammond. I am imploring you, the members of the Scarborough School Board, to do away with the mandatory mask requirement and implement optional masking of Scarborough students. This needs to be effective immediately. Our children have endured this for too long. Our kids need to see smiles on their friends and teachers' faces. Thank you for listening and for your consideration. This is from Florent Huxa at 11 Minuteman Drive. Just wanted to show support for making masks optional in our schools. I also thank you for helping navigate these tough times, but I hope we can put an end to this very soon and get back to our old normal. Thank you. This is from Winnie Lee at 34 Atlantic Drive. Dear Chair, thank you all for coming together today to discuss universal masking requirements in school. I would be here in person have I been able to keep it together. I am grieved that so much has been asked of our children during these past 2 years. Our children's social and academic life have been continuously interrupted time and time again at the altar of public safety. Firstly, our schools were shut down. Our playgrounds were closed to isolate and learn remotely, then hybrid learning, to mask 6 to 8 hours daily, to mask outside during recess, to sit 6 feet apart and eat quietly. Come this school year, our families were anxious to have normalcy for our children. Many participated in pooled testing. Families enthusiastically vaccinated their youngest school-age children. Our children, families, teachers, and community have done everything to combat this highly transmissible airborne virus, many of whom still got COVID during the last Omicron surge while masked at school. I question how a 3-dose mRNA vaccine that can't prevent transmission, but my child's Paw Patrol mask will be able to stop it. I am not saying this to be flippant, but to say masks are not a high yield intervention. Europe and UK do not mask children under 6 and 12 years of age respectively. Even in our country, many states have taken a different approach, even with significantly lower vaccine rates. Majority of these states are in the green, according to the latest CDC metrics. We teach our children to be critical thinkers by asking questions, and we must model the same. What more can we ask of our children? They have been treated as vectors of a disease by society. No one should ever be told that, especially children who are so vulnerable. Youth is fleeting and their carefree days are so precious that we need to strive to preserve it while it lasts. My second grader has only had 6 months of a normal school year where she saw her friends and teachers' smiles. Now is the time to learn to live with COVID. Please give them their normalcy back in the place where they spend most of their time. I ask that you put them first when our society has placed them last. Please vote for mass choice. All right, I'm going to read one more and flip over. This is from Martel John. I want to first commend the board for striking down the superintendent's plan, which was not in line with expectations of those who attended on 2/17. Assuming the board does the right thing today and votes to make masks optional effective immediately, I ask the board to consider the following guidelines when similar issues arise in the future. First, at a minimum, no mandate should ever be placed on our children in schools that isn't equally applied and enforced on all other businesses and adults in town. One of the cruelest realities as our community's pandemic response evolved was that a child mask mandates outlasted adult mask mandates, not because of any science, but merely because public school children have limited ability to vote with their feet when compared to an adult patron of a restaurant or retail establishment. Second, no change to the children's learning environment. For example, mandated masking should be approved without first consulting with the parents, as well as experts in all relevant subject areas. It took the board far too long to recognize that this is a multidisciplinary issue and no one person can claim absolute authority on it. A responsible democratic board would consider all relevant information and consult with stakeholders prior to making decisions of this magnitude. Third, and most importantly, any emergency measures like a COVID response plan should have come with a sunset date within a reasonable amount of time where the emergency measures will lapse automatically unless there is an actual vote to extend them. We should take the opportunity to learn how disastrous it can be when we tie our policies to the future actions of a state or federal agency, which has no concern for the particular needs of our town, nor accountability to its people. Thank you again, Shannon, and the rest of the school board for your leadership on these important issues. Kind regards. All right. Kaz, I'm going to allow you next, and you are ready.
Hello, it's Kaz Shappanoff. I'm out on Pine Point Road. I have 2 kids. I got a kindergartner and a 7th grader, so I won't beat a dead horse, and I'll just echo what the last few people spoke, but it should be a unanimous vote to allow us to unmask our children. I mean, there's never going to be an agreement. There's always going to be people that, there'll always be a disagreement, but we have to realize the big picture at this point is that the masks themselves are not what's keeping us safe from COVID. I don't want to downplay COVID or all the statistics that the people before me, throughout there, but at this point they're doing nothing but a disservice, and at the end of the day, we send our kids to school to hopefully learn something. And I mean, they're posing nothing but a distraction. I mean, I can't imagine how many times a teacher has had to say, pull your mask up over your nose and make sure your mask's up. I mean, we're expecting them to be disciplinarians when they're supposed to be teaching our kids. My son's in kindergarten, and I can't imagine how hard it is to understand some of these kids anyhow, and now you have a teacher with a mask on, they can't see if their student is smiling, whether they're sad, if they're comfortable, uncomfortable. And then again, the second they leave the school, they're unmasked, they're free to go anywhere, whether it's a sporting event, whether it's Hannaford, whether it's anywhere in our community without a mask. And, we're still forcing them to wear one at school, and at what point is it at the discretion of the parents to do what's safe? There's going to be risk with anything, whether it's driving a car, whether it's flying on a plane, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, we're all parents, and we should have the right to determine what we feel is safe for our family. For those that don't feel it's safe, that's why it's optional. The difference between the two sides is that we just want to do what we feel is safe. The people that are forcing the mask, they want to tell us what we need to do as well as what they should do. I mean, it's ridiculous at this point. And I think the last 2 school years, have served little to no good for any of these kids, and at this point it's, they're just killing time. They're going in there with masks on, and there's nothing but distractions. And I'd be hard pressed to think that they're getting anything out of the school day, between the older children that have phones, and you have social media there, and then you have the younger kids, which are focused on making sure they have a mask on. And I mean, at this point, it's been 2 years, we all want to be safe. No one wants to be hospitalized. No one wants to hear of a loved one dying, but it's no longer the job of the mask. I mean, let our kids go to school without a mask, and look at all the energy that every person on this call is putting, and we're sitting here on a Thursday night on Zoom. Like, we don't have any, this energy couldn't be used elsewhere. And, instead we're disputing over masks, but it's ridiculous. So thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Kaz. Thank you for being patient.
Thank you. My name is Paul Beaver, and I live at 21 Owens Way. I'd like to thank the board for all their hard work navigating the difficult task of providing the best and safest learning environment for our children. I'm thankful for the teachers, the janitorial staff, the nurses, the bus drivers, and the administrators who've had to deal with so many unknown variables with this ever-changing pandemic. It is your tireless work that has gotten us to where we are now without a tragic result in our school system. As a parent of children at both Wentworth and Eight Corners, I've been acutely aware of the changing protocols surrounding COVID-19. Dealing with the spikes and the variants and the mask guidance and the contact tracing must be impossibly exhausting. I'm a parent who was vaccinated and boosted the moment I could be, and I got my children vaccinated the moment they could be. I was also in support of universal masking in schools and in public spaces. My family and I have done everything we can to keep our community safe. I'm happy to see a continuing flow of metrics we can use to follow our now commonplace health and safety guidelines. Given the current circumstances, I'm encouraged that it seems we're headed in the direction of removing masks from constant conversation. I now believe they are more detrimental than they are helpful, but not in the way you might assume, not in the way some others have been commenting about for months. I'm in support of going to a mask optional approach now because A, the risks of COVID-19 have been mitigated through vaccinations, cleanliness routines, testing, and therapeutics. And B, because I think it's time we take this hot button issue off the table while severe illness rates are low and get back to focusing on the many other challenges facing our children's education. It seems, given the changing landscape and the precipitous drop-off of cases and the direction our leadership is going in, we're going to finally remove the minor inconvenience of wearing a mask to keep our neighbors safe. So I'd just like to say this. For those in the community that have been attending school board meetings and commenting on mask guidance for the last several months, I urge you to spend at least half that energy staying engaged in all the other issues that face this board, like school budgets, diversity and inclusion, staffing shortages, and the like. Let's harness all this passion and energy and focus it on our kids' education and well-being. That's what I intend to do. I appreciate all that this board has done and continues to do, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Ladd. I live at 12 Powderhorn Drive. And like you, I serve on other committees in town, one of which where I sit literally in your same seats, and often have to make decisions that I know are unpopular among people who come like this and make public comment, which, by the way, is way more nerve-wracking from here than it is from there for some reason. I'll do my best. And so, you know, I spent time today like organizing my thoughts, and I'm not going to read any of that because a lot of it's been done for me already. And I'm probably going to get emotional, sorry. But because as I left to come to this meeting tonight, I got up from the dinner table and I was explaining where I was going, and my kids are used to me going to a lot of meetings. And my 5-year-old said, I said, I'm going to the school board meeting because they're going to be talking about wearing masks. And my 5-year-old said, Mom, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. And she actually first she said, can I come with you? And I was like, no, you need to go to bed. And then she said, can you ask them if I don't have to wear a mask to school anymore? And she's 5. She's never been to school without that requirement. She spent her entire preschool in that requirement. And her older brother, our son, who's in 2nd grade, you know, had a few months of kindergarten without a mask. But other than that, this has become their reality. And, you know, those of you that have seniors or, you know, kids wrapping up high school, I don't have that. And I can't even wrap my head around what these kids have sacrificed, you know, for the benefit of their community, as you've heard in some other ways. So anyway, notes aside, I would just ask 2 things. One, that you keep in mind that all of the guidance that's been provided, which is head spinning, I get it, federally, statewide, locally, other towns around us, so much of that guidance fails, in my opinion, it's health guidance, it's public health guidance, and I really feel like it fails to capture, you know, some of the other social and emotional impacts of some of these health precautions that we have all become accustomed to. You know, and you've heard some of those things, and you know them for yourselves. Like we've all done this. And so I guess I would just, after that, just ask you to give us a date so that tomorrow morning when I wake my 5-year-old up, I can tell her when she can go back to school without this requirement. And I'm sorry. It's really important to me. I don't envy the decisions that you have to make and what you as volunteers on this board have been through, and your colleagues in other towns, is difficult. And truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate your time and running. You've all chosen to be here. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read a couple, go to a couple, and then come back to you. Okay. This is from Elise Chirillo.
That's also me.
Oh, all right. Well, then I'm going to put it aside.
Double down tonight.
Yeah, I will put it aside because you were here. That is perfect. Thank you for telling me. All right. So we will go to Tony. And I'm going to say in advance, I probably will butcher this last name, and I greatly apologize. Amike. It says, Dear BOE members, Superintendent Bruno and Assistant Superintendent Nadeau, First, thank you does not seem sufficient for all of your continued hard work and dedication to our children during these unbelievably difficult times. I am the parent of a Wentworth fifth grader and a pediatric nurse practitioner in the community. I work with some of the sickest and most vulnerable children in Maine. Thus, I believe I have an informed and relevant perspective as we consider the upcoming vote regarding masking. I will keep my message brief in the interest of time and share that I strongly recommend the BOE follow the CDC updated guidance, which uses a tiered approach based on community levels of COVID-19. The guidance provides a clear and plainful approach that I urge you to consider. All right, and I have Julia Fritz from Haystack Circle. Dear members of the Board of Education, my name is Julia Fritz. I'm a Scarborough resident and a pediatrician, and I am writing with concerns about tomorrow's vote on unmasking in schools. Over the last 2 years, I have struggled, as everyone has, with the unknowns of this pandemic and how to keep myself and my family safe. My husband is immunocompromised. My daughter is not yet 2 and unable to be vaccinated. And my work requires both that I care for patients with COVID, thereby putting myself at risk, and that my daughter be cared for during the day by someone other than myself or my husband, thereby limiting our ability to protect her from exposures. What has sustained me through this time is understanding the science and trusting the guidance from the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics, knowing that their primary concern is keeping people safe and help us in the risk-benefit judgments we make day to day. It would be false to claim I have never questioned this guidance, as it can be frustrating to receive conflicting messages or to make one adjustment only to hear the next week that in fact we should be doing something else. However, I know that with my own patients, I make the best recommendations with the information I have at any given time. And when the situation changes or new information comes to light, it is my responsibility to both reassess my previous recommendations and let my patient know if that recommendation changes. It is from this perspective that I ask any COVID response plan to follow CDC guidance, which was updated recently to incorporate the changing environment we find ourselves in. This guidance is science-based and balances multiple factors, including incidence of disease and hospital capacity, that are unique to a community and may change if a new strain emerges. Today, Cumberland County remains high risk, and universal indoor masking is recommended both in schools and in the community. I am sure some of the public comment tomorrow will include how tired people are of wearing masks or how the science doesn't account for this or that, to which I can see that this is not perfect. However, it is also the best recommendation we have with the information we have available, and to ignore it because we are tired or are holding out for perfection is foolhardy and disrespectful to anyone who is trying to serve their community and keep people safe. The proposed guidelines for Scarborough schools are not in line with CDC guidance, allowing much higher rates of disease before considering additional precautions and focusing on immunization, which, while helpful in mitigating the severity of disease, have recently been shown to be much less effective than hoped in preventing spread, While the question before you is specific to masking in schools, it is essential that you consider what is best for the community as a whole, which includes families such as mine with young children who cannot be vaccinated and immunocompromised individuals who remain at greater risk for significant illness despite vaccination. Please base decisions on COVID precautions on CDC recommendations rather than choosing arbitrary guidelines, and please consider those beyond the school walls who will be impacted by these decisions, as we are all one community. Thank you. Okay. Let me read one more and then I'll go on to the Zoom meeting. This is from Samantha Dunn. Dear Board of Education, I am a parent of a young child in the community and a developmental behavioral pediatrician who lives in town on Fairway Drive. In addition to general pediatric training, I completed 3 extra years of training in the field of pediatric development and behavior. This involves diagnosing as well as ongoing monitoring and support for children with delays in their expected development, autism spectrum disorder, intellectual or cognitive disabilities, ADHD, infants that were born prematurely, and more. I understand that many parents and caregivers have raised concerns that wearing masks might negatively impact the social and emotional development of their child. I wanted to reassure them that masking should not have a significant impact on their child's development. Research suggests that seeing the mouth is not essential for language development, and children could read most expressions on masked faces. In fact, visually impaired children develop speech and language skills at the same rate as their peers. Additionally, when one sense is taken away, the others may be heightened. Young children will use other clues provided to them to understand and learn language. They will watch gestures, hear changes in tone of voice, see eyes convey emotions, and listen to words. Parents and caregivers can take steps to compensate for any negative impact on masks on development, such as using a loud and clear voice. Overall, this research does not indicate that children should forego wearing masks. Rather, it suggests that we also need to consider our children's social and emotional development in addition to their physical health during this time. It is my professional recommendation as a developmental behavioral pediatrician and opinion as a parent of a young child that the best way to continue to support the social and emotional well-being of our children is to have them in school with as little disruption as possible. At this time, the best way to limit disruption in school attendance is through ongoing masking, especially with new data coming out that shows the Pfizer vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds is not very effective at preventing infection. Fortunately, it is good at preventing severe infection. However, this population of vaccinated children can still pass on the virus to medically vulnerable or those not eligible to be vaccinated both in the home and our community. Thank you for your time and consideration. Okay, Aaron Perry, I'm going to go ahead and promote you. Oh. Aaron, I'm going to ask you to turn your screen off if you don't mind. And then once that's off and you unmute, you're ready to go. Let me see if I can do it for you. There you go. Okay, you're all set.
You can hear me okay. Dear Chair, my name is Erin. I live in Pleasant Hill and I have a first grader and a 4-year-old. I am speaking tonight in favor.
Aaron, I'm sorry. Do you mind turning up the volume on? We can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Very slightly.
I'm sorry. It's my son's computer. Is that any better?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I can talk really loud. Do you want me to go for it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Dear Chair, my name is Erin. I live in Pleasant Hill and I have a first grader and a 4-year-old. I am speaking tonight in favor of children to be mask optional. I know tonight's meeting was scheduled to wait and see if the Maine CDC Mills administration would change their recommendation moving forward with mask options after February break. The time has now come. As of tonight, we are actually in the yellow zone. We have been following their guidelines and recommendations for the last 2 years. Why stop now? I am hoping Scarborough will join our surrounding communities on allowing kids and teachers the option to wear masks. I've heard concerns last meeting of what if we were to take them off just to have to put them back on again. Does that imply kids don't deserve a break as the CDC has recommended for adults? A little data from the CDC. All these statistics can be found on their website. I'm assuming they are accurate. I'm sure the doctors and nurses might have something else to say about it, but there are close to 75 million children in the USA. Since August of 2020, 307 children have died, unfortunately, from COVID complications. A large percentage of those stemming from obesity, childhood cancer, and underlying conditions. According to the CDC, 3,960 children drown every year. Every day, 500 children are injured in a car accident, 183,000 a year. Car crash fatalities under the age of 12 average 608 a year. Ages 16 to 19 have the highest fatal crashes of any age group every year. 140 children a year die due to choking. Will these statistics stop parents from going to Scarborough beaches this summer? Or stop parents from driving to their ski homes 3 hours north every Friday night in the winter, watching every single bite of food your child eats? I will boldly say no. No one ever wants anything bad to happen to their child. Car accident, swimming, sickness, anything that is out of our control. can keep a parent up all night, sick to your stomach, letting go and trusting the universe to watch over our babies. Right now, what we need to do is address the things that we can control or avoid. Mental health issues, suicide, social and emotional setbacks, constant rashes on their little faces, breathing issues from having a cloth mask on, doing laps in physical education that send kids home with migraines. Let's pause and remember, for weeks now, we've been told that cloth masks don't work. Yet all the younger kids I see daily all have cloth masks on. The biggest defense I hear from parents, board members, some medical experts who are not open to mask options is always to be safe, just in case, the safety. What if this person has a third cousin who has a grandma who's high risk and they might be living at home? My 4-year-old son goes to a Scarborough daycare and has been unmasked for 2 years, and they have had 0 instances. I teach 2 to 3 fitness classes a day with up to 25 people in a 105-degree heated room, unmasked. We've had 0 outbreaks. And as I say this, I understand the hypocrisy in it. It's not fair that my little one can go to daycare unmasked and I can go to the gym and then go get a cup of coffee unmasked, while my first grader who has asthma struggles every day with a mask on. Is the goal 0 COVID? That is not realistic. I hear medical experts talking about, what if a kid goes home and gives COVID to a family member who has high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity? But when do we start to talk about overall health and these conditions that are not always, but mostly self-inflicted? We cannot continue to halt our lives in mental health to protect everyone with every condition. It is time to let parents be the expert of our own children. We have the tools now to do the best we can do to move forward. Vaccines, testing, therapeutics, motivation to wash our hands, keep things clean, and most importantly, keep our children home when they are sick. Put trust in parents. We know what is best for our own children. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. All right, you want to go ahead now? Thank you for being patient.
Oh. Had to be me. Okay, well, it was nerve-wracking being up here. Dear Chair, members of the board, my name is Elise Torello, and I am a Scarborough resident and live on Elmwood Avenue. I'm a mother to 3 kids. I have a junior, a first grader, and a preschooler who will be in kindergarten this fall. And I've lived in Scarborough for the past 17 years. I moved here for the school system, and I have stayed here the entire time for the school system. I'm standing before you as a Scarborough supporter, a parent, but also someone who has spent more than their fair share worrying about COVID. The one thing I did not have to worry about during the past 24 months was the Scarborough Public Schools making a hasty decision on behalf of our children. On March 2nd, 2020, the Maine CDC advised Scarborough to renew and update their learning plans, even when there were no cases in Maine. Scarborough diligently responded and followed the recommendations. On March 14th, the Maine CDC said schools should close, and Scarborough again diligently responded and followed the recommendations. 6 days later, the Maine CDC said the school closures needed to be extended. Once again, Scarborough follows the recommendations. On April 8th, the Maine CDC said further extension of school closure through June. And again, Scarborough followed the recommendation. You guys are doing really good with that. On July 31st, the Maine CDC said draft a reopening plan for the fall based off of their guidance. And once again, Scarborough followed the recommendations. As you can see, the pattern is pretty clear. Scarborough follows the recommendations of the Maine CDC. No one goes rogue. No one does what they want based on personal choice or feelings. No one has ever indicated that they were better or smarter than any guidance they received from the CDC. It has been clear from the beginning with the consistent messages from the superintendents, both Prince and Bruno, along with our school board members, that the Maine CDC guidance will be followed. Yesterday, in my opinion, something great happened. The notification came from the Maine CDC stating that as of 3/9, masking is no longer a recommendation. It hasn't been a requirement for some time, but now it's not even a recommendation. It further stated that the Maine CDC had to review the federal guidance that came out last Friday and digest it before making a decision, which I can appreciate. Maine did that, and they not only adopted the federal guidelines, they encouraged it and came up with their own. The verbiage announced states, and I quote, "The Maine CDC now encourages childcare and schools to consider the optional masking guidelines." On my way in tonight, I got a message from Heidi McDonald from Heidi's House Child Care Center, and Heidi's House is now mask optional as of Wednesday. So my soon-to-be kindergartner will be able to go to school for the first time without a mask on. So I'm really excited about that. Now, in a little over a week on March 14th, it makes 2 years since Scarborough schools closed. 2 years of being diligent with the virus, but also listening to trusted, educated Maine professionals who have provided you, our elected officials, guidance so that you can filter them down to parents like me. I'm happy where we're at currently. It's been 2 years, not 2 weeks, to flatten the curve. Not great, but we've done it, and we're one step closer in Maine and nationally to the endemic phase of COVID. Things like case rates, vaccine levels, hospitalization rates, mitigation measures, and the fact that the children have now been placed in the lowest risk category with the federal CDC are among many facts I have to support mask optional. But one of the biggest one is that the Maine CDC is finally advising it. Personally, I had many reasons to argue for mask options. The public comment email is full of them, but those are my feelings, and facts aren't feelings, and we have facts now. So who are we now to say that we won't follow the guidance? Who are we now to go rogue and decide by personal feelings to go against what we've always gone with? A vote against masks being optional is a vote against the Maine CDC's recommendations, which is something this board hasn't done for 2 years. I urge every person on this board to use the guidance that they have used this entire pandemic when making their decisions about the staff and students of Scarborough removing their masks. Let's follow the Maine CDC recommendation and remove them. Thank you.
Go ahead. Yes, thank you.
Hi, board. My name's Amanda Goddard. I live on Nutter Way, and I have a child at Pleasant Hill in kindergarten. And I'm also a pediatrician and an infectious disease specialist. And I just want to thank you for everything you've done this school year. I know the last 2 years have been extremely difficult for everyone. And I recommend kind of what I think everyone's already leaning towards is following the CDC guidance. And that seems like masking is going to be optional imminently. And I would just ask that also just to think about a plan if things happen again like December and January, that there's also a plan for keep following the guidance and thinking about, do we have to put masks back on? I remember coming back from December break, and that first week of January, I got multiple exposure letters and thinking, here we go. And I work with high-risk kids, so we're pretty cautious at home. And if my son gets COVID, I'm going to get COVID because he wants hugs from me more than dad. And so, I was already thinking, oh, what am I going to do next week? Can I move my clinic schedule around? What's going to happen? And luckily, even with all those letters I got, he did not get COVID. And that was due, in my mind, more to the fact that all the kids are wearing cloth masks. Cloth masks actually do work. They decrease risk. They're not 100%, but they have been shown to decrease risk. They work better when everyone's wearing them. Unfortunately, the masks that adults can wear, the ones N95s aren't made for kids. They're really uncomfortable to wear, and the cloth masks are just more equitable. They can be washed. They're not as expensive. And I just would like, hopefully, a plan that if the numbers get as bad as they did again in December, January, that we wouldn't have school closures. We'd have mitigation measures, because in my mind, in that first year of the pandemic, when schools were closing and the remote learning, I just had a visceral reaction to that, because I know as a child myself, school was my safe place. I became a doctor because school was my equalizer. I felt safer in school than I did at home. And it broke my heart to see kids having to be at home and missing out on school. And I would just want to do anything possible that we could to keep our kids in school. And it's great. We're going to be able to take masks away by the metrics. And it would be great to also just have a plan of what do we do so it's not chaos when multiple kids are testing positive again. And also, I guess, somewhat of a plan of, I know because of masking, kids haven't been having to quarantine and leave school because both kids are masking. And I haven't really heard a plan yet of what school quarantine is going to look like if a kid's exposed, unmasked. Are they going to then have to go home for 10 days, which I really hope it wouldn't be that, but I haven't heard necessarily a plan for that and look forward to hearing about that. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to read a few and then I'll go back to Zoom. I have a couple people on Zoom still. This is from Jamie Johnson. Hello, my name is Jamie Johnson and I live on Black Point Meadows in Scarborough. I am the parent of a Wentworth third grader and also a registered nurse working in infectious disease. First of all, thank you for your work during these challenging times. It has not been easy and I have appreciated the precautions, pooled testing, and continuous efforts to keep our kids safe and in the classroom. We are close to getting a break from masking, but we are not quite there. Instead of making a flat vote for no masks, I implore you to continue to follow CDC recommendations. The CDC provides the data and metrics for determining when it is safe to unmask and categorizes community transmission levels as high, medium, or low risk. As of today, 3-2, Cumberland County is still considered high transmission risk and masking indoors is recommended. We are likely weeks away from being a low risk zone. Following CDC recommendations provides guidance should a new variant or wave of COVID return and we need to bring masks back. Please also continue pool testing. This decision is in the hands of the parents. It's easy, safe, and another tool in our tool belt. Keeping Scarborough kids and families safe and in school is everyone's goal. Thank you for your time. This is from Ethan and Sarah McGrain at 8 Rhonda Drive. Good evening, Scarborough School Board. We are writing again to express our support for making masking optional. We wrote last time in hopes that Scarborough could lead the way in this effort. However, now as we look around town after town, district after district have already removed mask requirements in schools and public settings. We heard at the last meeting that it was important to wait and see what the post-vacation transmission rate was, but where does the logic end? April vacation is right around the corner. We can't continue to live in fear. The time for change is now, especially since the updated guidance from the CDC is out and they no longer recommend universal masking in schools. Please listen to the community and put the choice for what is best for their children back in the laps of parents. Please make masks optional, not at some future date, but effective immediately, and let our kids smile again. Thank you for your time and consideration. This is from Marilyn Cush. Hello, I am a grandmother of 4 students in the Scarborough School District. I am very concerned regarding 2 years of masks and how they are affecting my grandchildren socially and foremost mentally. I am observing a definite decline in their spirit, enthusiasm, and ambition. I usually ask them about school and they have the same response. It's okay. This is not the answer I am accustomed to hearing from them. 2 years ago, they never stopped talking about their studies, activities, including sports, and their friends. These masks are having a definite negative change in our children's behavior. It's time to remove masks and let them smile freely. All right, I'm going to go to Diana Nelson. You are ready to go.
Hi, thank you guys so much. I sent an email earlier tonight with my thoughts and opinions, and I wasn't planning on speaking tonight because I had already sent it along to the board. So thank you for hearing me out. And again, thank you for your public service. This is not a job you guys signed up for, guiding us through this public health crisis, but certainly we do appreciate it. As a mom to 2 kids in the school district, I think it's really important to teach our kids to understand the world and how they fit in it. And I think it's really important to remain engaged in the municipal process in a community in which you are really committed to. And so, like I said, I wasn't planning on speaking, but we had the school board meeting on. I'm cooking dinner. My kids are at the kitchen table and they're coloring. And my daughter, who's 7, looked at me and said, "Mom, I want to talk tonight." And so I am going to let my daughter, Julia, who's 7 at Pleasant Hill, she's in 2nd grade, share her honest thoughts about how having masks on this late into the pandemic makes her feel.
Hello, my name is Julia Nelson. I am in second grade. I hope you make masks optional because I get so hot in gym. That's just one reason. We don't usually wear them anywhere. Oh, thank you.
Good job, girl. You know, one of the things that we've all heard throughout the pandemic is that these kids don't, it's fine. Kids don't care that they've got these masks on. They're fine. There's a huge difference between being obedient and following the rules and being indifferent to something. They're not indifferent to this. It is time. They go to urban air, they watch TV and they see the Super Bowl where no one's wearing masks. We go to restaurants, no one's wearing masks. And at some point we just need to decide what is the line that we're going to draw for when we can drop this in the school day. It doesn't, to me and to the kids, seem to pass the straight face test anymore while we're wearing masks in school. And we submit our comments with nothing but sincere respect for the decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. All right. April Scyther, you're up.
Hi, guys. April Scyther, 14 Huntley Drive. This is a hard one and already a long night for you guys. Like others, I spent time today organizing my thoughts, preparing my statement, and I also tend to get emotional when I go off script. But I'm going to go against my better judgment here and scrap all my notes and say just this. I urge you to continue to follow the main CDC guidance, just as we have always done. Regardless of the fact that it is slightly at odds with my own personal feelings. We have an unvaccinated 4-year-old, and it is my sincere hope that our community will show compassion and empathy to my older children as they navigate the conflicting feelings that they will undoubtedly have as their peers remove their masks and as they struggle with their own decisions about whether or not they're going to keep their masks on. And they're going to need a lot of support, you guys. And that support starts with the board and administration and our amazing teachers and our fellow community members. We have to be there for each other. We have to continue to be there for each other. So I am urging you tonight to please continue to follow the main CDC guidelines. And a bit of business, I urge you to please word the motion in a clear and concise manner so that we can all move forward on the same page tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for your service to our town, and I can't wait to see you all again in person soon.
Thank you, April. Right. April was the last person I had on Zoom and the last person I see in person that want to speak. I have 2 more that I'm going to read. So if there's anybody else, this is your time to get in line or raise your little hand on Zoom. Oh, all right. I have these 2 and 1 more. Okay. This is from Anitra. She says, hi, I really strongly feel that masks should be optional for students and staff. I currently have a child attending Pleasant Hill School and gets 90 minutes a week of speech therapy, and wearing a mask isn't helping. Thank you. This is from Denise Morrison, school board members and Superintendent Bruno. Please vote to make masks optional for the student body of Scarborough and all staff. Please do not delineate between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. Thank you for voting to remove the mask mandate. Did you say there's 1 more?
This is from Jessica Stinson, 13 Elmwood Ave. Good evening. Thank you all for your time in reviewing public comment on this important mask mandate review. As a parent of 2 children in the school system, immune compromised, vaccinated, responsible citizen, small business owner, and registered nurse, I would like to urge the board to strongly consider removing the universal mask mandate. It's time for choice. Regards, Jessica Stinson.
Thank you.
My name is Marissa Hatch. Bear with me. I didn't know about the meeting until last night that it was happening today, and I did not prepare anything. But after hearing everyone speak, I feel compelled, so bear with me for a moment. I think most people have said what my family has talked about every single day for the past 2 years. And I am at the point between 4 kids, boys that have been through the school systems, and just so many friends and other parents that have had the same experiences of the frustrations of kids coming home, the headaches, everything that they listed of the unusefulness of the masks and I guess the bad parts of it. And I am just beyond frustrated with how many times that this has come up with not just Scarborough, but statewide, nationwide of the, should we mask, should we not? I feel like 2 years ago, in 2 weeks, no one would have ever considered having to wear a mask every day. I look back at when I was young and I would go to the doctor's office. I had never seen anyone really ever wear a mask other than a couple. If you were sick, they would hand you a mask. I do not see why people who are not sick need to wear masks in school, because outside of school, the kids are together, they are without it. They need to build up their natural immune system, which was God-given when we were born. We all have one. And I do think that as they are removed, you may see some higher numbers because people's immune systems are so shot that if you at least give it a chance to build back up and see time of the masks off, if it will level itself out. And I think most parents, and you have a father over here who is a veteran, has already said of the social aspects of high schoolers, and I have seen it in my own family, of the amount of depression and anxiety and just lack of social. It's beyond frustrating that I can't even convey in words how frustrating it has been for everyone with both opinions that are pro and against masks, pro and against vaccinations. I think we can all agree that we are all fed up with having to talk about COVID for 2 years. It's just frustrating. And I understand it's up to you guys, and that's pretty intimidating to have thousands and thousands of people's lives in your hands. But I just really hope that you will hear us out. And the fact that the CDC isn't even recommending masks anymore, I really hope that you listen to that. And thank you for listening to me ramble and having no idea what I'm saying. But thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Terry Harriman Mastis, and I live over on Phillip Street. I have one child that has gone through the school system and another child that's in 8th grade. I found out about this meeting about an hour before it was happening. So I had no idea that I was going to talk, but did feel compelled also to talk. I'm a radiographer and have been for the last 22 years. And by giving out this information, I'm putting a target on me that I am unvaccinated and was fired from my job because I chose not to be vaccinated. My family has since had COVID. We all got through it. Nobody got sick, and I'm not under saying that, other people that have been sick and have gotten it that haven't had can possibly have lifelong issues with it. My 8th grader has learning disabilities, and these last 2 years have been so difficult on our family and on him. And for him to finally be back into school has been amazing, but him having to deal with masks all day long is another challenge that we have had to overcome. He doesn't pick up social cues. He doesn't. So hearing about having the mask and that kids can tell was floored me, because I have seen firsthand how my son cannot handle that. So I am hoping that you guys go by what the CDC, even though I have a very hard time with the CDC, working in the hospital and having the information change daily and not having proper equipment for 2 years, that I was able to survive in there in the hospital dealing with COVID positive people and not getting COVID. It was after that when I stopped working that we got COVID. To go with their guidelines and to allow people to choose whether or not to mask. I think it's time I think we're all tired of talking about it, and I think we need to move on. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'm not back. She tugged my hand and she said, I'd like to say something.
Sure.
So I'm
Please.
here as support.
Yes, please. Absolutely. Thank you.
Tell 'em who you are.
Hi, my name's Asa Howe. I'm a sixth grader at the Scarborough Middle School. It's my first year at the middle school and I really enjoy it. But the one thing that I would change is the mask mandate. And that's because I'm a very athletic person and I have to wear a mask, and it's kind of hard for me to like really focus on my breathing and actually what I'm doing. Another reason is my friends. I feel like we've kind of not really been as social towards each other just because of masks and social distancing. But I would really like it to be optional to wear masks at school because I feel like just everything would kind of be better. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up and talking. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment tonight? Seeing no others and seeing no hands, I will close public comment. I know, I imagine we probably would like a recess, but what I would like to do first though is ask Michelle Shep to come up because she's been waiting to do her presentation, and then we'll take a break if that's okay with everybody. Agenda item 6.0 is the high school 2023 Italy, Greece travel plans. Michelle Shep, who is a Latin teacher at the high school, is here to present the trip to us.
Little change of pace, little change of conversation. So it's so exciting to be in front of you again. Leanne and Alicia were on the board 2 years ago before everything fell spectacularly apart. And I'm so excited to take those students finally this summer. We're going to be going on that trip and propose next summer's trip for the advanced Latin students and for advanced art students. So the trip we're proposing is called the Cradle of Civilization, even though I really hate that name because the Cradle of Civilization is technically in the Middle East, but we'll just deal with that. Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, which is most of the people on the board, I think, I have been teaching Latin for 21 years. My mom is from Korea and my father is of Middle Eastern origin. And both of those things really gave me like a really deep passion for seeing the world as my family. My parents did not have a lot of money. They were not wealthy people in the financial sense, but they introduced me, they wanted me to see the world and have always wanted me to see the world as a place of infinite learning. And I hope my children see the world as a place where they have a lot of family throughout the world and not as a place that is scary, which can of course be a narrative that we easily buy into. So I just so you have some of my my bona fides, this will be my 19th student trip. I've been traveling with students since 2003. I've taken over 350 students and I've brought them all back. That is harder than you would think sometimes, but we've all come back. The two chaperones who go with me on these trips are Mr. Davis, who is the other Latin teacher at the high school, and my husband. I let him come. So what we are doing on this particular trip, oh, one more thing. I do speak fluent Italian and Greek. I lived in both Rome and Athens, and it's a magical experience to take students and let them learn in situ. You know, I'm not from Maine. I've been here for the past 6 years. And I think it can be really hard when you're from one place and that's been the only place you've ever been. To really, and it's a beautiful place. Like, I love it here. It's, if you're going to be in one place, this is the place, right? But in today's society, it is like increasingly important that our kids see what the rest of the world, what people are doing, who people are, if only to see how similar we all are. So at any rate, I feel very passionately about travel with students and want to help them to be able to go, you know, through different programs. Obviously, it is not financially feasible for every student, but we do our best to help them. So the program would be next summer during July for 10 days. We'd be starting in Athens, and we would see, of course, well, I mean, I should probably be brief because I could talk about this for a long time. I'll just say we're going to Athens. Okay, we're going to see everything. This is one of my favorite places to live. So like, I love taking students to Athens. From there, we go to Delphi, which is magical. We'll also be going to one of the Greek islands. It's an island called Hydra. We'll be going there for the day after 2 full days of historical exploration in the city of Athens. From Hydra back to Athens, across the northern part of Greece to Delphi. From there, we will cross over the Portorio Bridge to the port town of Patra and sail from, you can see on the map, we're going to sail from Patra to the heel of the boot, which was the ancient port of Brindisi, or Brundisium, which is a lot of students study in their Latin classes. From there, we'll go to the Bay of Naples, we'll go to Pompeii, we'll go to Mozzarella Farm, we'll go to a Lemon Grove. Okay. I speak 6 languages and sometimes I can't remember the English word. So I'm really sorry, Lemon Grove. And then north to Rome, where we'll spend 3 days. It is an incredible trip. It's really an incredible trip. I do have the itinerary here for you with the prices and the insurance plans on the back. Are you guys allowed to pass things to each other? Okay. Take one and pass it. So do you board members get access to this PowerPoint or the Google slideshow? Okay, so you'll be able to click on the hyperlinks if you want to take a deeper dive. So that first link is actually just a link to this PDF, okay? And it has the itinerary, it has some of the different things we're doing. We do a really fun Greek cultural like dance lesson where they learn how to make olive oil and feta cheese. It's really fun. At any rate, and yes, adults are allowed to come. You're not chaperoning though. So, but you can come as, you know, participants. So in this second slide, who is eligible to come and is not open to the whole student body, because this is like a deeper learning trip. I used to open it in the early years, like 2003, 2004. I used to open it to the whole student body, but what I really found was the Latin students weren't reaching a higher level of learning because I had to start at the beginning for everybody. So this is my trips to Italy or Italy, Greece in this case are really just for Latin students or advanced art students, because of course we do go to the Vatican museums, as well as the National Archaeological Museum in Athens and the Acropolis Museum in Athens. On that slide, when you get access to it, if you click on the first link, it has a link to a Italy trip, and you can click on the video. And actually, what you'll see is that on the 2017 trip, the tour company actually, like, out of 995 student trips that year, they asked if they could come with us because our students had such a good reputation. So they came with us, they interviewed our students, they interviewed myself and the other chaperone on my trip. So actually, it's really awesome because it's like very professional, amazing video with our kids. And the second link, the level 2 or higher, links you to a Greek trip. So you can see kind of the same thing, but from the perspective of like what they learn in Greece. And the educational chaperones are myself and Mr. Davis. Would you mind clicking the next? Thank you, Diane. So, yeah, I'm really sorry to bring it back to COVID, but I feel like I would be remiss in not discussing this. So travel is the love of my heart. Maybe I should say communication is the love of my heart. I really love talking to people, ironically, because I don't actually like people very much, but I really like talking to people and I love my students. So lest you be alarmed, but I really like finding out like what's important to people and learning about them and talking with them. And you can't really do that without a knowledge of foreign languages. It has been heartbreaking the last 2 years to not be able to live our lives, right? That's been awful for many of us, that means many different things. I myself have multiple hereditary situations that put me at high risk. I know it's been really hard, and I know we have concern about that. I didn't feel personally like I could take students again without going to see what it was like firsthand. I'm a very put my money where my mouth is kind of person. I don't like to lead from supposition, but from experience. That's why I'm a Latin teacher and an instructional coach, because I like to be able to do both things in an informed way. At any rate, I went to Rome about a month and a half ago. I was there for 5 days. I led some teachers because Rome is my particular place of expertise. And I felt magically safe for the first time in 2 years, actually. I kind of like regained a sense of like, oh, this is what life is supposed to be about. The living part, right? So if you click on that link, board members, the first one, you will see, I made a website for my students with all of my own commentary and narrative and videos and pictures and like historical information that we use in class. But the link specifically I linked you to was the page about my observations about how coronavirus is being held in Italy. And actually masks are absolutely required for everyone. One of the callers said that they weren't required for a certain age. That's not accurate. But that was in late January, so maybe things have changed. It was very safe. The airport in Rome specifically, so I've been through the Rome airport probably 25 times. It was incredible, the changes they had made to make it COVID safe. I was blown away. I was so proud of Italy. Italy gets so much slack about being like, so, laid back, and they were on it. It was really, really impressive. The second link, you can look through at your leisure, are the policies from the tour company itself, ACIS, about how they keep the kids safe regarding health situations like COVID or anything else that might come up while we're on tour, before tour, and before we come home. So those are the items that are in the presentation. My goal is to help our students see what the world has to offer. Are there any questions?
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I thought that was like a buzzer and you were like, I get to go first. That was
But
funny.
it feels like it should be, right? That sounds like an amazing trip and a wonderful opportunity for the students and for you. So thank you so much for coming and speaking to us tonight.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be a teacher in this district.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. All right, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess just so everybody has an opportunity to stretch their legs. So we will come back at 9:03. No, 9:02.
11.
All right, I think we're back. Before Sue, I just need to take care of one procedure really quick before we move on. We are a little after 9 and it will be 9:30 before we get through the agenda. So I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting beyond the 9:30 time.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor? All right, perfect. Yes.
Shannon made the motion.
Leanne, yes. Yes, thank you. All right, agenda item 7.0 is the superintendent's report. Let me go ahead and turn it to Sue. Or you want to?
Excellent. I'll turn it right over to Sue Ketch, our high school principal.
Thank you. So tonight I've come before you to talk a little bit about our program of studies. We're looking for your acceptance of the 2022-23 program of studies. We've been working on this since about November when we put it out to teachers in departments to make any suggestions or add anything that they would like to suggest. Part of that is always to immediately wrap that conversation in with Mrs. Culbertson as our curriculum director. We work with her on all of these additions as we move through. We did present to the curriculum committee on this board in early February. And I think we had a good discussion about the changes and additions. And I know that the board has received a copy that shows you even down to almost the letter of any things that we're eliminating or any things that we're adding. And I'm sure you've all had a chance to look at that, but I do for the public want to just do some highlights so that the community at large kind of knows about some of our changes. I do just want to say that we've been really fortunate this year. Some of our additions, many of them are from our new staff in the building that have come into the building, started teaching, and either have some courses that they've taught other places that they're excited to bring to Scarborough High School, or they've talked with students and students have asked about some courses. So a lot of this is teacher and student driven, which is very exciting. The review, like I said, began in November, and we're tonight ready to get this moving because we start scheduling students for the fall in a matter of weeks here. We start with the 8th grade and then start having our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders scheduling for their classes. So this program gives them something to look at to decide what they'd like to be taking next year. Just to hit some highlights, our career pathways programming just had a few small edits. In English language arts, we're adding an advanced debate course and 2 literary theory courses. In fine arts, we've done a little bit of course realignment and updated some descriptions of those classes to make them what we feel is a little bit more accurate. There are several new courses being offered. We are dropping Guitar 2 and Music for Life, maybe not forever, but for right now we are. We're dropping video and audio production basics and the new media and broadcast journalism. And we are looking at increasing in the music department 2 choral programs, one for students that really haven't been a part of a chorus before and would like to learn the basics and learn how to be a choral singer, and then another course that will be for our more advanced students that would like to be challenged. Math this year did not have any changes. In social studies, we are adding an AP course, which is human geography. In student services, we do have some updated descriptions for our early college and online courses for college programs. So we just have some new information there. And we did add an addition about NCAA information. And we just want to make sure that all families understand how NCAA works. And so we've included that, even though it is currently in our handbook. We thought this was another good spot that parents do read through, and we wanted to just make them aware of that. Science and technology, we continue to add and keep working on our graphic for the protocols for STEM pathways. And we've worked on that a little bit more this year, and we're happy with those additions. World languages, we've added a course in French 4, conversation and composition. That was another course that students said, you know, for those of us that would like to continue in French, but don't feel we could tackle the AP level, we really would like a French 4 to take. So we are adding that to our curriculum. Theater 2, we're replacing that with a script writing and production course where students will write scripts and then within the class they'll produce them. And so that's an exciting change. And I think I have covered everything except for adding advanced robotics, and that's part of that pathway change that you see on the lower right-hand side of your screen. So that's just a quick overview of the basics. I did just want the community to hear kind of some of our additions and what we're looking at as we develop the program of studies for next year.
Does anybody have any questions? Leanne?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Sue, thank you for advocating on early college. I can't stress how valuable that is for our students. My son took advantage of it. He's going to wind up with a dual degree in 3 years because of what Scarborough had prepared him for. For anybody who's coming up the ranks, take advantage of this. It's a huge money saver for the parents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Any other comments or questions for Sue? Thank you so much for coming tonight. Everything sounds so wonderful. They're good opportunities for our students. So thank you very much.
And I love that teachers bring things forward and students make requests and teachers move on that. That's just a really exciting cooperation to see us develop.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Sue. Before we get into the calendar, actually, I wanted to skip to the next slide, maybe go back. So just a couple of things. I wanted to, first of all, extend my thanks to Jessica Conroy and to all the 6th graders. I had the opportunity to team teach with her this morning, all morning, and it was just awesome. So she was one of the lucky golden ticket winners. So at the beginning of the year, at our whole staff start, 25 staff members had a little golden ticket as part of their agenda, which entitles them to a half day of me at their service, basically. So we've got a couple more of these scheduled in the coming weeks, but Ms. Conroy offered to team teach with me, and I got to do a little science, and the kids learned about Yellowstone as part of her language arts class. And I used to teach middle school science. So that was a lot of fun that I had today. The other thing is I wanted to make sure that there was some public clarification on the updated COVID response spring plan that was shared with the public in preparation for this meeting. I know the agenda was changed, but there's a very important sentence that I think people either skipped over or maybe I just didn't do a good enough job in putting the draft together. But the sentence right in the introduction, should the Maine CDC, DHHS, DOE amend its guidance to identify masks as optional or recommended before March 14th, Scarborough schools will follow the amended CDC guidance. So the draft that was put together, I was tasked with, okay, what's the Scarborough specific plan? Because there was no clarity from, at least yet, the updated guidance hadn't come out yet as to when masks or what the metrics would be used for masks to be optional. So I bring that up just to clarify that's in the introduction right at the beginning of that plan. And that's exactly what happened. So we got that updated CDC guidance. So the draft and the plan was intended to, okay, we have it. Now that's what we should be following. Certainly just as Scarborough, as folks have mentioned here this evening, Scarborough and, me being new to Scarborough and coming in, was really impressed throughout the pandemic, how Scarborough has followed the guidance and has done so in such a way to keep our kids healthy and safe. So I just wanted to, to make sure that was clear, because it clearly wasn't. I think that's people either skipped over that sentence or what, but I just wanted to clarify that for the board this evening. And now the second part, which is the 2022 and 2023 draft school calendar. So I know that this is also in the policy committee report as well, going over some of the changes. The major change in this draft school calendar from last year to this year is the addition of a staff day, a full staff day. So there are 2 staff days at the beginning of the year, similar to how it was this year. And then there's still also the professional day in October and a professional day in March. That would reduce the number of student days from 177 to 176. So that's a major change. And then it also outlines the beginning of school and the start dates for each grade level. And one thing to note, we did at the last meeting approve the remote days after 3 snow days. That is not a part of this draft. That decision to go to remote learning days after 3 traditional snow days. So that's not part of this draft, but certainly is something that could be part of a future meeting if that was something that the board wished to continue that policy. But that is not included in this calendar.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions about Jeff's superintendent report? All right, very good. Agenda item 8.0 is the chair's report, which is me. Mine is very quick. I just wanted to remind the board that our workshops in March there's actually going to be 2, and it's not going to be before one of our March meetings like we would typically have. Instead, we're going to have 2 where we work with Leadership Council to hear about the budget for the year. So these are open to the public if anybody is interested in coming. The first will be Monday, March 14th, and that will be at the Wentworth Learning Commons from 4:30 to 7. The second is Tuesday, the 15th from 8:30 to 11, and that will be here. Again, the public is welcome to come. There also will be a Zoom link sent out so you can participate remotely. And in addition to that, they will also be recorded and put up on the website with the materials for anybody who would like to see them afterward. Are there any questions about that? All right, agenda item 9.0 are the committee reports. I think the first one is finance with Jenna, right? Yeah.
So our last meeting was February 10th, and we reviewed state subsidy, the preliminary ED 279. fiscal year 2021, the ending fund balance will be 2 million. However, the overall loss of, I can't read my own slide, of close to 460K in subsidy for 2022 to 2023. So it's a net gain of 30K in operating costs, but we're leaving aside funds earmarked for a reserve fund in fiscal year 2022. So, we got an enrollment update. So we have a student count, and it dropped from 2,928 to 2,869, which drives down all per pupil rate calculations. This is calculated by local valuation, and our local valuation is up by 24.6 million. So it's a higher expectation for local tax contribution. We also discussed that school nutrition is shifting to a new funding model. The USDA changed, and we're seeing school nutrition in the black. And we will be reimbursed per meal until, I think the commitment is until 2024. And then our next meeting is March 10th. And you already mentioned our upcoming budget workshop.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenna. Does anybody have any questions for Jenna? All right, thanks so much. Next is policy. So Leanne.
Sure. The policy committee met on the 8th of February to review the school calendar that Jeff just discussed. The committee will be bringing that forward tonight for a first reading without a committee endorsement. We really felt, as we looked at the different areas on the calendar, that it was bigger than just the board. The committee, to make that decision, we really needed full board support on this. Having to do with the decrease in the number of class days, doesn't give us a lot of leeway towards the end of the year. Traditionally, we've waived a couple of days here and there. We're almost to the minimum number of days allowed under state law. So we were really uncomfortable with that change. We also hadn't voted yet on remote snow days, so we didn't know where the board was going to land on that decision. As Jeff mentioned, it wasn't part of the draft, but it could be part of the draft. So again, if we had brought it forward, we just needed to make sure that everybody had open opportunity to talk. And we've heard a lot of feedback from the community with respect to the appointment days for grades 1 through 5. We've heard those concerns as well. We just wanted to make sure that that was raised as something that we've heard, and we will discuss this piece. So that was my thought on this. I do want to give where it was we don't have consensus amongst the committee, to give both Alicia and Shannon a chance to opportunity to speak and share what your thoughts were coming out of that meeting, if you'd like.
Do you want to go ahead, Alicia?
Well, I mean, I guess I shared in the hesitancy and didn't necessarily endorse it. I feel strongly about the maximizing the number of days that the kids are in school. But with that being said, we are asking our administrators to implement a number of different initiatives that requires professional development days. And this is the recommendation of administration. And so, here we are trying to asking them to do all of these things that need days, and they're trying to do it. And then, I'm saying, yeah, but I want the kids in class at the same time. And so, because we were not unanimous in our lack of an endorsement, we thought that it made sense to bring it forward to the full board and just sort of express where we came down and why we came down that way, and why we made the decision to not really force ourselves to become unanimous, but rather bring it to the board with our concerns and the discussion that we had, and allow the board to sort of hash that out and give us direction going back into policy. One of the things that I like about the way this happened is that by presenting it without making the edits in policy, where it seems like the public's not really paying attention, now the public is paying attention and understands sort of the iterations, because there aren't any, but they will understand the iterations if they occur. So I think that that's been beneficial, because it's provided more information to them, whereas if it's done on the committee level, I don't think that we would necessarily have that type of feedback.
Thanks, Alicia. And for me, this is the committee I do sit on, and I very clearly was in the in the minority here. My reasons for wanting to bring this forward and approve that extra PD day, professional development day, is exactly what Alicia just said. I think we ask a lot of our staff, we ask them to do new things, and we give them new responsibilities, but yet we're not giving them the time to kind of align with that ask. So and it's not that I don't weigh the loss of student learning time, but I think that if we give our teachers and our staff this professional development time, it's going to just make them even better in the classroom with the kids and when they have the kids face to face. We are one day over, to Leanne's point, we are one day over from the state requirement. So I do feel comfortable that we're still within our guidelines there as well. Are there any questions on the presentation or for Leanne about the policy committee update? Okay. And we will discuss this later when we get to the new business as well. All right. Thank you, Leanne. Next is communication. So Jillian.
So we had our meeting yesterday. Our big goal will be to communicate around the budget, get the information out about the workshops so the public can join if they want. And that's just going to be our focus. Our next meeting is April 5th at 4:30.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Jillian? All right, thank you, Jillian. Next is curriculum, John.
Thank you. And basically, Sue already gave us the Cliff's Note version of what we did, so thank you. Much appreciated. Our next meeting will be next Wednesday.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for John? All right, thanks, John. Next is the building steering committee. So Kristen? Or Jillian? Pardon me, Jillian.
All right. So we met on February 15th. We had a lengthy discussion about community awareness and how we would get people to engage in this process and be familiar with what is going on. We also talked about site selections and what that would mean, the DOE requirements per student, and their state and federal guidelines, DEP guidelines. There's a lot, basically. Harriman is assisting us in creating the overview for the town council. So there will be a presentation to the town council regarding all the facilities work that has been done. And we're going to meet March 15th at 7 p.m. We have not, we don't know the location exactly yet. I think it probably will be in Chambers, right? And then all meeting minutes and project materials can be found on that link and on the Building Steering Committee website.
Thank you, Jillian. Are there any questions for Jillian? Thank you. Agenda item 10.0 are student representative reports. So we'll start with Julia.
So Pleasant Hill had Spirit Week this week, and Monday was Wear a Fun Hat Day. Tuesday was Wear Stripes or Colorful Clothes. Wednesday was Wear the Color of Your Favorite Spot. Thursday was Pajama Day, and Friday was Dress like a character from a book or bring your favorite book to school. Then at Eight Corners, they celebrated the 100th day of school. It looks like it was a lot of fun. Eight Corners also celebrated Superhero Day, and they had a lot of fun in the snow. At Wentworth, previously I talked about the yearbook covers, and the winners have been announced for those. The front cover winner was Bryce Cummings, and the back cover is Sage Sear.
So this is at the middle school, and before February break, they kind of had a send-off Spirit Week. They had Hawaiian Day, Twin Day, which sounded really fun, Hat Day, Jersey Day, and that's it. And Pajama Day, yeah. And then the next slide, at the high school, our sophomore class officers put together a fundraiser at Big 20 Bowling. They put together a team of 6 friends and went bowling. There was food. The winning team is the top right corner. I think those are some senior boys. They got a trophy, looks like, took it very seriously. Sounds like a lot of fun. That's all I have.
Thank you, Yuli and Gabby. Are there any questions for them? For either of them? All right. Fantastic. All right.
Can we skip back? I just had a liaison update.
Oh,
I
I'm
wanted
so
to give.
sorry.
No,
Yes.
that's totally fine. I spoke to Councilor Anderson this morning and just sort of wanted to make you guys all aware. They had a workshop yesterday. I'm still in the process of watching it, but they brought a consultant in for their growth management and the Downs exemption and all of that stuff. But there was some discussion about impact to schools. So check it out if you have a moment, and I will send you the highlights when I get through it.
Perfect. Thank you. And then just to kind of carry on to what you're saying, you can find their town council's meetings on their website as well. All of the YouTube links are there for you to watch as well. All right. Agenda item 11.0 is new business. 11.1 is a motion to approve the first reading of the 2022-2023 school calendar. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? All right. Well, I'm going to offer an amendment to this. I don't think we are in a position right now to approve this calendar. I would like it to go back with Jeff and with policy to look at the days in the beginning and to also look at the remote snow days. So I'm going to offer an amendment that we table this and we send it back to the committee.
I'd second that.
Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Well, I guess the whole purpose of not endorsing it at the committee level was in an effort to get some guidance from the full board on their thoughts and how to proceed. So without discussion, we don't really have that to go back to committee with. We did get, so that makes it difficult. I mean, we did get community input about the grades 4 and 5 appointment only days at the beginning of school and how that's difficult for families. But other than that, there's, I think that we're going to be right back where we started from. And so that concerns me moving forward without the, sort of a discussion by the full board.
Thank you for saying that, Alicia. That was my concern as well, that I know when we had voted on snow days, we had all agreed it was for this year. We need direction on what does the board want to do moving forward. Are there metrics in order to determine whether or not we go forward with it? Was it successful? How did it work with the staff? Just something for the policy committee to react to. Yes, Kristen.
Are we allowed to have a discussion or
Yeah,
not?
we're in discussion. Yeah,
Okay.
because yes, she seconded it. And now we're in discussion.
I
Yep.
hear you, and I'm sorry that we didn't give you guys feedback.
No,
Can
that's
we
okay.
do the snow days separate? Is that something that we can give it see if we have any? Because it hasn't happened yet, right? So can we do that separate from the calendar? The way we did it this year, like approve the calendar and then take up snow days as a separate thing? Or do you guys prefer to do that all together?
Well, I'm going to ask Jeff what he.
Ideally, because it's calendar related, you just
Do it all
want to do it
together.
all together.
Okay.
Instead of doing it separately.
Okay, and then I think if you guys take this back, well, like the PD days to me on their own maybe aren't as concerning, and days at the beginning of the year on their own maybe aren't as concerning, although we've received a ton of feedback that those are issues, but like combined, what does that do? How much are students missing out on collectively when we start looking at all those? And then the remote days, I do have concerns in particular for our K-5 students of those being an actual instructional day. So I think it's starting to like chip away at the time that they're in school. So I do have some concerns.
I did just want to mention to the board that we do have our K-5 principals here to be able to kind of provide a little more insight on the start of school on those appointment days, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, please.
Hi, everyone. Kelly Crosby, I'm the principal at Wentworth School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about the start of school. I know the last few years have been nothing but we haven't had typical in a little while. So I want to give a little bit of context for the beginning of the school year. I'll speak specifically to the K-5 appointment days, appointment only days. And I appreciate what Alicia and Shannon said about staff have a lot to do in the beginning of the school year, and they really need the time to do that. So let me see, put some notes together. This year was a really unique year as students transitioned back to full-time unit learning in person from remote and hybrid learning. Our staggered start to this school year over the course of 4 days was a one-time ask for that specific purpose. However, what is not unique is the time that teachers really need to work one-to-one with students at the beginning of the year. So not only is dedicated one-to-one time excellent relationship and rapport building time, supporting students' SEL needs, it's also time to complete several required and critically important assessments. Take into consideration just the required reading assessment called a running record. This assessment takes on average 30 minutes, typically a little bit longer per child. Running records help teachers measure students' progress, plan for future instruction, provide a way for students to understand their progress, and communicate progress to parents and the school community. This time is also for gathering baseline information about a child's interests, abilities, and skill level in order to support building a reading life. I asked the teachers to provide their feedback after the transition to the school this year, and then again on the proposed calendar. I asked the question, having 2 by appointment days for students at the beginning of the school year is, and gave a little Likert scale. So 1 being not necessary, I'm able to adequately assess my students' academic strengths and needs without this protected time, all the way to 5 being critically important to my ability to adequately assess my students' academic strengths and needs. It is very rare to have a pretty much unanimous feeling among the staff at school. 91% of teachers who reported said that it was critically important for them to have this time with their students, with 100% of homeroom teachers and teachers of reading responding that this time is critically important to their ability to adequately assess their students' academic strengths and needs. Some of the quotes were, the required reading assessment can only be done one-on-one. Thus, when I'm testing a student for 30+ minutes at a time, I'm not working with anyone else. So this is from a 5th grade teacher. 30 minutes times 24 students is 720 minutes or 12 hours. So 2 days is necessary for completion of just those assessments. If not, 12 hours of reading instruction must come out of the first month of school to complete these evaluations. I'll add that we have handled that through coverage. And so what that means is having an ed tech or a support staff member cover the classroom so that the teacher can work one-to-one with a student to complete the reading assessment. That has been additionally challenging because our ed tech staff have been substitute teaching virtually every single day because of the substitute teacher shortage. This quote was really powerful to me as well, and then I'll wrap it up. Sorry, I know it's been a really long night. This was the first year, this is from a 3rd grade teacher, Richard Selinger. He gave me permission to use his name. This was the first year that I had reading levels determined for all students at the start of the school year. Typically, this takes nearly a month to complete. Trying to accomplish this task while establishing classroom routines presents a real challenge. Knowing each of my readers before the first full day allowed me to start the units for the year and have them in their just right books more quickly. This will be the first year I expect to move students into a 5th unit in reading and writing. Typically, it's a push to complete 4. I attribute that to the start of the year. So truly having that time at the beginning of the year allows for more instruction over the course of the year. So it is a give to get. I get that. It's a challenge for families. It's actually a very grueling day for our staff as well. It would be just easier to have them all in and figure it out over the course of time, but it's not what's best for kids. So I will close with this. This year, the first day of school for K-5 with all students all day was September 9th. In the 2022-2023 proposed calendar, students will all be in school 3 full days earlier, September 6th. This proposal supports a strong staff start for our students, the time that teachers require, and has the students in school full-time 3 days earlier than the current school year. So I'd urge you to please support this plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And I know that the K2 principals are online as well.
I don't have a question, but Kelly, thank you so much for that explanation. That I hope that for the folks who had the concerns have heard this. That was a really powerful explanation and what the value is of this. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Kelly or to Jeff's point, the rest of our K2 staff is on? Yes, Alicia.
So I agree, Kelly, that was really, really helpful. And thank you for that. So you said that there's no way to like finagle things so that the kids can all be in and pull one out and it's got to be individual, right?
It has to be individual. It's a one-to-one assessment, and that's just one assessment. We also, we figure that all out with a math running record, with other individualized assessments. But for this reading assessment particularly, it's really challenging. You have to be very focused. You're talking with the child, you're building a relationship, and it's a detailed assessment that is really powerful in the information that we glean from it. And it's required.
Yeah. So there's no, I mean, is there a way to do like, I don't know, classrooms combined, or are there any other options so that kids could be in school in a different way while that somebody's able to move out, or would that be?
So that's what we did this year. At the beginning of the year, this year, we had those half days or on the full days, non-homeroom teachers pushed in to support the rest of the students while the teachers one by one pulled the kids out. And that was challenging for a number of reasons. The routines have not yet been set up in the beginning of the school year. The kids are just getting to know each other, getting to know the staff. They're having kind of a unknown person come into their classroom to cover. The teachers had to make sub-plans, not really knowing the students well, knowing what their abilities are, what their interests are on the very first day of school. And it was challenging for the support staff. In fact, any of the survey results that I got back that were like, no, don't do this, were from support staff who were like, because I really don't want to cover any classrooms. And I think that they misunderstood. Because it was very challenging and not the best way for kids to start. Being in school with an unknown person, doing substitute plans, the level of instruction is just not what it would be with their typical reading teacher. But I don't know if the K2 principals want to speak to that as well.
I just want to support what she's saying in terms of appointments, especially this upcoming school year. I think it'd be really, really important to give every child that one-on-one time without the interruption of pulling teachers and pulling the kids out during the school day, especially in the beginning of the year when it's most crucial to get it done. And then at the same time, not having built a relationship with any of the staff that's coming in and out. I think it causes a lot more issue when we can help the teachers and the students get it done quicker and get them to where their target should be.
Thank you, Jenna. did you have a question?
I didn't have a question. I just a comment that that was incredibly helpful. To echo what everyone has said, in particularly to have something as quantifiable as getting through an extra unit is really helpful to hear that kind of feedback. So thank you.
Thank you. It is that little give to get, right? 2 days in the beginning, but that means that everybody is back full-time in person right after the Labor Day. So it's just those 2 days before the long weekend. And then after the long weekend, we are off to the races. All of our kids knowing where they're at and able to better meet their instructional needs without the interruption of over the course of, if I go back to that math over the course of, what did I say, 720 minutes, 12 hours. So if a reading class is 1 hour long, has 12 days of their reading class, their teacher being pulled out to do the assessments with somebody else covering. And it doesn't happen 12 days back to back because we just don't have the staffing to cover that. But it's very challenging in the beginning of the year where we could just really get them done in the beginning, develop that relationship with the students and move forward. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kelly, very much. Is there any question for any of the teachers that we have, the K-2 teachers? Or I'm sorry, principals. I'm so sorry. Sure, yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't hear you, Diane. Just something we wanted to add?
Yes, sorry, I didn't have my
Okay,
microphone on.
I thought that's what you said. I mean, I think Kelly really said it perfectly, and we use it for the same purpose. I think the social emotional needs of our youngest students is a big focus, but that's the same at 3-5 as well. And it's just, you can't quantify that time enough and the value of it. And we've had that time at K2 for a long time, and 3-5, it's something new for them, but they desperately need that time. It takes them even longer to do those assessments with kids. And you're just always chasing that down if you don't have that time front loaded at the beginning of the year. So we've advocated for our 3-5 partners to have that time for their teachers, because we know how valuable it is. And as a K-5 team, we really want to see that for all of our students.
Thank you, Kelly.
You guys have been there so long tonight. You don't need us to weigh in and repeat what each other has said. I completely support what both Kellys have said now. And, it's so important for parents to be able to get into the classroom and meet the teacher and have, just 15-20 minutes to see where their child's going to be all day. Everything from practicing flushing a really loud new toilet to where do I hang up my stuff? All of that can happen in a caring, thoughtful, careful way. And it's time you can't find any other way.
And I'll just add, having worked at Wentworth previously and now at the K2 level, when I think about the second graders that I know who are going to go to Wentworth in the fall, just the benefit of having that time to transition to their new school is just so valuable. So I support it and echo everything that's been shared tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Brown. All right, are there any other thoughts for policy for Jeff and Diane? I think we've heard a lot of great information from Kelly. We know we've heard some thoughts from Jenna and Krista. I just want to be sure everybody's has the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the board again, is there direction on how you want policy to handle snow days?
I told you this would happen. We wouldn't get the 4. Right? I said we're going to go through all this, we're going to approve this, and we're just not going to get the 4.
And the PD day.
What did you say, Alicia?
And the professional development day as well.
Oh, you're asking for input on that too, is what you?
Well, I didn't really feel like we got, I mean, Kristen spoke about the cumulative effect of the appointments and the professional development day, but then we heard Kelly's presentation, so I'm just wondering like what other people are thinking about.
I don't want to hog the feedback.
Please, go ahead.
People
What
want
is,
more.
what it would, yes.
I think with the snow days, when the survey was done, there was a lot of feedback in there that I thought, oh, when we take this back up, some answers to some of these questions would be really good. Like what's happening. I can't even remember them all. I'd have to go back and sort of dig through that survey, but there was a ton of awesome feedback. And I thought, yeah, long-term that we should think about a lot of these things. So maybe if we can get some answers to some of the stuff that's in there. And I think defining, again, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but what a K-5 day looks like and whether we feel good about calling that an instructional day. I think I have concerns there. Just the K-5 kids, when they're remote, I think they're not getting the same experience that they get in the classroom, and they're not really great independent learners yet, you know? So I guess maybe a little bit more like description of what they're doing and what that day looks like, and maybe a little bit more how I can feel good about considering that a day.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
All right, but, okay, so do you think them being at home, doing whatever they're doing on, March 14th, it's a snow day, is going to be more productive than what they're doing on June 21st?
Yeah, I mean, I've given a little bit of thought to that actually, and we spend a lot of time, as we should, on social emotional learning. And I think school is really the best place for some of these kids to be. So yeah, at the end of the year, maybe it's not all academic, but for K-5, there's so much value to them being with their peers and being with their teachers. I don't think, I realize academically those things might be a wash, but the other things that kids get from school aren't such a wash for me. It's not so clear cut. Does that make sense? Okay.
I just had a question about the snow days, though. I'm trying to just think back now. When we talked about the snow days, it was just like low tech or no tech, right? For those days. So I guess, yeah, I think I'm with you, Kristen. I think I have some concerns with if it's no tech or low tech, then what are they actually getting from it? I mean, I think we should just keep the snow day separate from all of this. And yeah, I don't think I can support a remote day for especially the younger crowd.
And this would be after the X number. Yeah. All right. Okay, so before I close, is there any other thoughts? All right. Oh, yes, yes, I made the amendment to table this and to send it back to Jeff and to policy. So, and we second that. So yes, can we please vote? Thank you for keeping me in line. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm so sorry, I apologize. So, all in favor of tabling this and sending it back to policy and Jeff? All right, thank you. Okay, so 11.2, do I have a motion to approve making universal masking optional for starting Wednesday, March 9th?
I have a question. Can we make that an earlier date and do it for at least Monday?
Hold that because I have to second this and then you can offer an amendment. So do I have, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Discussion?
just wondering if we can make this at least the start of Monday. I mean, I would like for it to be tomorrow, but I understand that people need some time to adjust however this swings. So if this passes, I just want to know if we can have it set for Monday, if that's enough time to notify.
So what you would do is you would offer an amendment to this. So your amendment would be to move the date from Wednesday, the 9th to Monday, is that the 7th?
The 7th.
Monday, the 7th?
Yep.
So you would offer, so you're
motion to
essentially
amend.
gonna say, I
Yeah.
want to offer
Motion
a
to
friendly
amend.
amendment. Yeah,
The start date to at least Monday,
so Monday. the
not March 7th.
Okay, so then is there a second to that? Okay, so there's no second. So then we're back to the original, which is the motion to approve the universal masking optional on Wednesday, March 9th. And then back to discussion on that.
I'd like to offer a second amendment that we would move to masks optional under the guidance of the CDC.
Under the guidance of the state CDC.
Thank you. Under the guidance of the state CDC.
Okay, so we would be, we would be motioning, so the amendment would be to approve universal masking optional starting Wednesday, March 9th, following the guidance of the Maine CDC. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, so is there discussion on that amendment?
What's the rationale behind that?
The reason for that is because to comments that we have heard throughout the whole night, we have been following the guidance of the Maine CDC all the way through the process. If we move to masks optional, we would need to come back if anything ever happened, and I know everyone will have a different opinion on that. If something happened, we would have to come back and vote again to install masking because we would no longer be following the guidance of the Maine CDC. It's just a guardrail. We're getting what we want, but it's a compromise. The masks will come off, but we have something there just in case something happened.
Can you repeat your amendment?
Sure, my amendment was that we would go masks optional Wednesday, the 9th, following the Maine CDC guidance.
I have
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a
Jeremy.
question about this. So are you saying that if, like, say the CDC, the Maine CDC comes out and says, oh, we now recommend universal masking, we'd follow that, like, without discussion again? Okay.
I have a. Go ahead, Kristen.
I guess I'm wondering if that did come up, wouldn't it come back to a vote since this one came to a vote? Right, we've always voted on the revised SOP.
Yes, so this is, we are in a little bit of a gray area right now because the statement came out yesterday that the recommendation was going to change. There are no updated SOPs with it up until I walked in this meeting at 7 o'clock. So we don't have, where we have always followed the DOE's SOP, we don't have that to follow right now. So, but to answer your question, yes, anytime there has been an update, we as a board have voted on those updates as they've gone. So, I don't know if that's helpful or not. So is there any other questions or discussion?
Just bringing back, I think when there's new guideline, then it would someone can just bring it back. And I don't think that we should follow the metrics and that the guidance from the Maine CDC right now, because they've already told everybody it's all up to local decision. And should something arise, then we can revisit it, but we're not there right now with their Maine CDC saying they're not even recommending masking right now. They're even saying disregard, whatever your transmission level is right now, where they're not even recommending it. And federally, it's going to be gone for transportation too. So I think if this issue should arise again, then we bring it back. So I don't think we should keep that together for a mask option vote.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, Jenna. I don't disagree. That said, for the last 2 years, I have openly stated, I am not an expert in this field. I'm relying on experts to help us in making this decision. And if they're making this recommendation, absolutely, we'll follow it. If they make another recommendation, yes, the board should have that conversation again. I'm not seeing where to me, I don't see it as being a problem. It's a compromise. We're both going to lose a little bit of something, but we're getting ultimately what we want with the masks coming off on Wednesday.
I think we really need more community input before just putting all our eggs in that basket again. We didn't really get a chance to 2 years ago because we just followed everything. We didn't know anything. Now we know more regarding COVID. And before anything gets mandated again, I think we really need community support or just feedback from the community before we make those decisions.
Kristen, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I think I understand the intent of what Leanne is saying, and I guess I'm wondering if there's a way to, because this isn't going to be a decision that everyone is happy with, and the people that would like to continue masking would like to know that we have some kind of guardrails in place, and I think that's important, and I think that's where the compromise comes in, and I don't know if there's a way to accomplish that goal without specifically stating that it's following CDC guidance, or if there's some way to guarantee that the board will come back to this. We're not just, I think that's what people are looking for. And I do think we need to be respectful of the fact that either decision is not going to be universally good news for everyone. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
You're good.
okay.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, so the current vote on the amendment is that we are going to, I guess I need a minute. I'm not quite ready because my confusion is the gray area. So I'm kind of thinking about what Kristen's saying about rewording this to be, because if we, my problem is if we say we're following the main DOE SOP, the current SOP says we're masking. So it's kind of contrary to what the statement is. So I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the whole thing. So if we said, so I guess if we're voting,
I just wanted to point out that the most recent SOP revision in February decoupled the quarantining exceptions from whether you were universally masked or masked optional. So in other words, we would still be able to follow the current SOP if the board were to vote mask optional.
And additionally, they are coming out with a new revision of the SOP that is supposed to be shared prior to March 9th with the governor's new guidance.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you both for that. Okay, so I apologize. Let's go back to, we're voting on the amendment, which is to approve universal masking optional following the CDC, main CDC guidance. Is that correct? Did I word that right, Leanne? Oh, right. So to approve universal masking optional starting Wednesday, March 9th, following CDC, main CDC guidance.
Can I nitpick, and I don't know if this is the place to do it, but the language of that, where it says to approve universal masking being optional, I think the universal masking, the universal word should come out. It should just say to make masking.
Okay, so I'm just gonna type this at this point. So the motion to approve masking optional starting Wednesday, March 9th. And then, do you want to tell me the wording that you said one more time about the main CDC so that I have it right? Yeah, that's her friendly amendment. Okay, so we are voting on the amendment, which is a motion to approve masking optional starting Wednesday, March 9th, following the guidance of the main CDC. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and vote. So all in favor of the amendment?
Hold on, just
Oh.
being clear.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm
Yes,
not doing
please.
anything wrong. We're voting on the amendment
Yes,
first?
yes.
Okay.
You vote on the amendment first, and then if needed, we go back to the original. Are we all, okay? Okay, so go ahead and vote. All in favor of the amendment to, one more time, approve masking optional starting Wednesday, March 9th, following the guidance of the main CDC. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4. So it passes it. Right, so we take, but we still have 4, so it passes. I know, I'm so sorry, I apologize. Okay, so it passes. So we are going to approve so masking will be optional starting Wednesday, March 9th, and it follows the guidance of the main CDC. All right. I do just want to take a minute. I feel like this is a pretty big moment for everybody, and I know this is a little out of order. I feel like I need to thank everybody in this room. This has been a long night. I appreciate you guys hanging in with us. This has been a really emotional and hard 2 years, and I appreciate all the work that everybody has done. I know sometimes it's thankless and it's very hard, and I appreciate you. And then I also have to really I think on behalf of all of us, thank our teachers and our staff, because we have asked them to do nearly the impossible over the last 2 years. And this, I know this doesn't feel good for everybody, but it's a step forward. Okay. Agenda item 11.3, approval of the 2022-2023 high school program of studies. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? All right. Thank you. And it passes. All right. Do we need to vote on them? I'm sorry, we need to just take a quick recess just to answer a question.
Can't because it was amended, it's no longer the same. It changed the original. So you can't go back.
Maybe you need to declare the original motion as.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to, very quickly, just for clarity purposes, back to 11.2, the motion to approve universal masking optional. That motion, because it was amended, the original wording died. It is no longer, it's null and void. So masking is optional in Scarborough starting Wednesday, March 9th, following the guidance that came from the Maine CDC. All right.
Are we allowed to ask a question or no?
Okay. Let's move down to 11.4, the meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the February 17th, 2022 workshop?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Are you two finished? That passes. Agenda item 11.5, do I have, as the meeting minutes of the February 17th, 2022 business meeting? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right. Agenda item 12.0 is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging in there and have a great night.